check the list of participants a different way. Looking at videos is just not helpful.
I know I'm just going to share some information. It's probably TMI for some of you, but I know some of you had my Declan, Miss Beagle, and I don't even, oh, Mr. Jerry. You guys, Declan went off to boot camp. He's off on the Air Force. So,
wow.
Congrats to him.
So I just wanted to, he's serving his country now.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's just kind of hard to picture that little face off on with that AR-15, right? No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. Anyway, just wanted to
I still see him as a first grader, so.
No. Yeah. Anyway, just sorry, wanted to share that.
Okay, we have Mrs. Allen, Mrs. Fisher, Mr. Skorzynski, and Mr. Sartorius. So we at least, oh, and Mr. Karcheski. We are waiting on Mrs. Thompson and Mrs. Conquest. I saw Mrs. Conquest's name pop in. And Mrs. Allen, are you with us? I see your name listed.
Zoom was super slow to let me in, so maybe that's what she's having.
There she is.
I see Mrs. Allen's picture.
Here.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
Okay.
We're just waiting for Mrs. Thompson then.
I have a full screen here.
Yeah, we added pretty much the entire admin team as panelists, so they can respond to questions and give insights from their building and department. Well, we're at 6 o'clock, but I would recommend waiting just a few more moments before we get rolling here.
I know she was having computer issues, so.
Yeah, she came and picked up one of ours today.
Oh,
She said that hers crashed yesterday.
Hello.
Laura.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, there you are.
All right, I'm going to try to do the screen share again. Oh, I don't think that came up the right way. How about now?
It looks good on my end.
Okay, good, good, good. All right, sir. Mr. Sartorius, I believe we are ready to begin.
All right, we'll call the meeting to order. Roll call.
Mrs. Allen?
Here.
Mrs. Conquest?
Here.
Mrs. Fisher?
Here.
Mr. Karcheski?
Here.
Mr. Skorzynski?
Here.
Mrs. Thompson?
Here, sorry, I was on mute.
Mr. Sartorius?
Here. We do have a quorum.
We do. I will turn the screen to the flag if people can join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Okay.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of the United
States of America
and
to the republic
for which
it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
With
liberty,
liberty and
justice,
and
justice
justice
for all.
for all.
Okay, if everybody could go to mute unless you are going to speak, and we'll go with district announcements.
Did you want to approve the agenda first, sir?
Oh, where are we at here? There we are. Okay. A motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make that motion. We approve the agenda as presented.
I'll second.
I guess we better do a roll call and everything so we can figure out where.
Yeah, while we do this remotely, it's a requirement that we do roll call votes.
Okay.
Mr. Skorzynski,
Aye.
Mrs. Thompson,
Aye.
Mrs. Allen,
Aye.
Mrs. Conquest,
Aye.
Mrs. Fisher,
Aye.
Mr. Karczewski,
Aye.
Mr. Sartorius.
Aye. Motion carried. Now we'll go to district announcements.
Yeah, but basically what I kind of want to announce is, ironically, now that we have finally gotten kids back in our buildings a little bit, we are presented with our first possible inclement weather coming in tonight. So we are watching the storms, and we in talking with the village road crews, we expect that everything should be fine to continue with in-person learning tomorrow, but we never know what the night's going to bring. So everyone, just be on the lookout for a possible communication if the roads do not allow us to get the buses to school. But by all accounts, we will not have to have our first remote snow day tomorrow. But that's just presented the entire suburbs with a rather interesting piece during this, the hybrid learning models that so many have adopted. So there is that. But other than that, we are happy to have kids back in school. I know tonight we're going to talk about getting them back in school more. We are just, it was great to be around the buildings and see kids, back in classrooms, answering questions from teachers, raising their hands, smiling, all of that stuff. So, welcome back, Minooka 201. And in just a few minutes, I'm sure we'll be talking about getting them back in more. So that is all I have for district announcements tonight.
Student of the month.
So I want to make sure I offer up a chance for any of the Minooka Intermediate School admins that are on the webinar. If you would, do you have the ability to introduce your students of the month?
I got that this time.
Hey, there she is. Mrs. Beagle, Minooka Intermediate School.
For 6 blue, we have Alexander Esquivel. For 6 green, we have Lexi Guerrero. And for 6 red, we have Elena Bowe. Congratulations, kiddos.
Bravo, on behalf of all of us here. Anyone from the junior high school?
Yeah, I'm going to take that here, Dr. Mons, Bill Gensler. For the 7th grade language arts, we have Peyton Isaacson. For 7th grade math, we have Gavin Loss. For 8th grade fine arts, we have Ayana Morris. And for 8th grade science, we have Mark Rodegaro. So I hope I did not butcher his name too much, but congratulations to them. They're doing great jobs in school each day.
And as always, thanks to the Minooka Lions Club and the other local businesses for their support of our students of the month. So congratulations to those young men and women. And we look forward to seeing you do continued great things. For public comment, we did have 4 comments submitted to be read. Sorry, clicking over here. So a few of them are a little lengthy, so this could take a few moments. But the first one we received to be read was from Ms. Christine Hill. Hello, Dr. Mon and Minooka 201 school board members. I am writing this email to respectfully ask you to please consider increasing our children's in-person instruction as soon as possible without delaying such a move until 4th quarter. An increase in days per week, hours per day, or ideally both must be on the near horizon for many reasons. My 8th, 7th, and 3rd grader all attended their in-person A-Day classes yesterday and were unanimous in feeling great joy and excitement about seeing their teachers and receiving face-to-face instruction. They came home with smiles on their faces and filled me in on the details of their day. They were happy to finish what homework needed to be completed on their computers because they hadn't been on them all day. In short, their school day was the highlight of the week. It saddens me that because of the holiday on Monday, the A-Day students only got to have the in-person experience 1 day this week and have to wait 5 full more days in order to be back. Regardless, 1 day or 2, the current hybrid schedule does not afford our students nearly enough in-person time. We have lost out on precious instructional time, and we cannot allow it to continue any longer. As a parent of an 8th grader, another concern I have is how well prepared our District 201 students are going to be for high school. If they will be attending MCHS alongside students from District 17 who have been in person since August, our district's incoming freshmen are certainly at a disadvantage. They will be attending an area Catholic school alongside students from neighboring public school districts who have been in person, as well as students from areas private parochial schools who have also been in person. Our district's incoming freshmen are certainly at a disadvantage. I do believe that our teachers are doing the very best they can and have been dedicated to providing our 8th graders with a quality educational experience this year, but our remote and/or hybrid plan is certainly not equal to what our students should have had this year. I don't mean this simply in terms of education either. We can't negate the importance of the sense of community our students are missing out on, the sense of belonging and common experience that should have bonded them via things like sports, clubs, social gatherings at the school in the evenings, even time spent together in the lunchroom, on the bus, or in the hallways. Our children's educational growth has been impacted, but their growth as individuals in terms of their social and emotional growth has been impacted just as much, if not more. If I'm being honest, I think that I'm more concerned about the social emotional impact of the remote hybrid plan than I am about the educational impact. Our kids are suffering academically, socially, and emotionally, and we cannot allow it to continue any longer. Finally, it is my understanding that we are looking at the numbers set forth by the powers that be to determine our next steps. We are following the metrics for our region in order to determine a more robust back-to-school plan, and it isn't now the time to do so. If we are talking about opening bars and restaurants and scheduling spring sports, are we also talking about how to return to a more normal school day and week? It appears that all things are pointing in a positive direction, and the numbers are dictating that we act now, not 2 months from now. By not doing this, we are indicating to our children that while we say their education is important, we aren't actually doing anything to show them that. If they can go out for dinner or attend a sporting event and do so safely, then surely they can get back into the classroom safely on a more regular basis. Our kids are finding that receiving the best possible educational experience is not the priority we claimed it was at the beginning of this school year, and we cannot allow it to continue any longer. Our children have sacrificed enough since last March. They have lost out on so much already. We cannot be complacent and sit back and let them miss out on any more. We take pride in our school district, but I know that, along with many of my neighbors and fellow community members, are losing faith in our district's motivation and commitment to student learning, growing, and achievement. My faith in the district's 201 Inspires motto is minimal at this point. I feel like my children and all of the district students and parents who are dealing with this school situation day in and day out, all while putting on a happy face and powering through it, are truly the inspiration here. Our parents deserve better, our children deserve better, our families deserve better. I believe that we can do better, and I believe that we need to do that now. It is imperative that a plan be devised and put into place that would put our children back into the classroom on a more regular basis, at the very least, with a complete return being optimal as soon as possible. I implore you to take all of the concerns and points made above into consideration when determining our district's next step in our return to school plan. I know my 3 children want nothing more than to be back in school, to learn and grow in all areas of development, and get back to a daily routine that includes education alongside their peers and in front of their teachers. I'm certain you will all have their best interest in mind when making such a decision. Thank you for your time and understanding. Christine Hill. Thank you for that, Mrs. Hill. The next email I received, the next comment I received was from the Vieira family. Board of Education, Minooka School District 201. Please put forward a motion for children to be in school 5 days a week full-time. We could write a long email about why it is so critical for our children to go back to school full-time, but we will take this opportunity to share in a nutshell about our son Santiago and how remote learning is affecting our son to unbearable limits since March 31st, 2020. A healthy, happy, athletic, smart boy who loves to learn now is having signs of anxiety, depression, lack of motivation, and behaviors. He is not progressing in his goals and cannot complete tasks independently, regardless of the 2 different ILP with adjustments for him. A healthy 9-year-old should not have to take Prozac to fix what remote learning has done to him. Our opinion is absolutely objective. Everything has been documented in close effort with the teachers, administration, therapists, and directors. We believe there's a way to do better for our children. We ask you to find it. Our community and students are getting burned out. You don't want to be one of the districts to appear on the news because someone lost hope. May God bless you and guide you. Be sure that all you do is noticed and appreciated. The Vieira family. Thank you for that. The next email is from Mrs. Meg Pennington. Good morning, Dr. Mon and the Minooka School Board. If comments are being collected before the board meeting this evening, I would like this to be read aloud. First off, I would like to thank the administrators and teachers at Aux Sable Elementary and Minooka Junior High. They have worked so hard to ensure our children are still receiving an education in some form. I would also like to thank Mrs. Conquest and Mrs. Thompson for at least communicating with parents on this situation and for trying to get the kids back in school. Dr. Mon and the rest of the board, plain and simple, as a parent, I feel our children have been completely failed this year by your unwillingness to return them to school. We are at 10 months of remote learning, and out of those 10 months, only 1 month of our children have been learning in person, and even then for only 2 mornings a week. I do truly believe the staff and teachers at my kids' schools are working so hard, but are limited with what they can do. When my children complete school at 11:30 and 12:30 for the day, something is wrong. I would be more understanding if this were statewide, but the fact of the matter is that there are plenty of schools nearby with school populations that are the same or larger that have been willing to bring their children back in the classroom, many full-time. Their administrators have been innovative and the results have paid off with little community spread. At this point in the pandemic, the evidence is clear. It is safe for children to be in school with proper precautions. A recent study published in the journal Pediatrics followed elementary school students and concluded that from a study of 100,000 staff and students, only 32 cases were traced back to their schools. The study's authors concluded that with the proper safety precautions, it was actually safer for children to be in school than in the community. A state public health expert, Dr. Allison Arwadi, has declared repeatedly since August that it is safe for children to return to school in Illinois. Dr. Fauci has stated the same, and now the new administration is making it a priority to return children to schools. This needs to be a priority for our district. I implore you again, please do not continue to fail our students. They are being affected not only academically, but emotionally and socially as well. Former CDC Director Dr. Robert Redfield stated as early as August that a rise in adolescent suicides would be a substantial public health negative consequence of school closings. School districts in Las Vegas just made the decision that a rise in adolescent suicides in their community necessitated the reopening of schools. Do you want this to happen in our community? These children have nothing to look forward to. Please, please do everything in your power to return our children full-time to the classroom. It is time, and they deserve a superintendent and school board that will prioritize their education and mental well-being. Do not let our children continue to fall behind and suffer any longer. Thank you for your time, Meg Pennington. Thank you, Ms. Pennington. And this afternoon, we received one from Mr. Brent Pomerani. And I apologize if I got that name wrong, sir. Good afternoon, Dr. Mon. It is good to see the students back in the classroom, although unfortunately it continues to be very limited in nature. I was looking for the board's feedback in tonight's meeting as to why several surrounding school districts have students in attendance 5 days per week, yet 201 chooses otherwise. Is there consultation and coordination with these surrounding districts sharing best practices? What is the plan to return to the classroom 5 days per week and/or instructional hours per day? Our students continue to bear the educational cost of learning remotely and with partial school days when protocols are in place or are available to manage the risk. I still maintain that those families who chose remote over in-person should be allowed to do so. This controls the school census and allows for more manageable class sizes, assuming the 70-30 split still holds. I appreciate the board's response to these inquiries. Thank you, Brent Pomerani. And that concludes public comment, sir.
Okay. Move on to the consent agenda. And you notice the list in there. Is there any other of those items that need to be brought forth?
Just to clarify for the members of the public that may be watching, the consent agenda is where we put a fairly routine list of business items that need to be taken care of at each meeting. Tonight's consent agenda includes the treasurer's report, the approval of board meeting minutes, the approval of our list of bills, motion to destroy closed session recordings, the approval of our personnel items, a notice of FOIA requests, of which there were none in the past month, and then a semi-annual review of the closed session minutes.
Hearing none, I'd ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make the motion to approve the consent agenda.
A second?
I'll second.
Roll call.
Mr. Karczewski,
Aye.
Mrs. Conquest,
Aye.
Mrs. Allen,
Aye.
Mrs. Fisher,
Aye.
Mr. Skorzynski,
Aye.
Mrs. Thompson,
Aye.
Mr. Sartorius.
Aye. Motion carried.
Despite many of the things that this pandemic has done to our board meetings, the fact that Mr. Skorzynski does not pull the personnel list off of the consent agenda is at least one piece of efficiency that we've been able to accomplish. So,
And that could change pretty soon.
I know once some of the big ticket personnel items might pop in. So, okay. Real quick, let me click down in the agenda here. Okay, so tonight, clearly, the main topic for discussion that was referenced so often there in public comment was updates on the hybrid learning model that we have before us here. And as you can see, I've pretty much invited the entire administrative team to be able to respond to any board member questions or inquiries. So, well, as everyone knows, last week we returned from the pause that we took over the holiday break to ensure that we didn't have any type of community spread following holiday gatherings. And I'm thrilled to report and so grateful to the community and to the staff and to the students and parents. We had very little notification when we came back from the holidays that we had people needing to quarantine. We had a slight uptick a little bit right before some of the schools reopened on the 19th. But in general, our quarantine list is fairly small, and you know, people took the right mitigations and kept themselves safe. As one of our public comments mentioned as well, I think everyone can see that the metrics in our regions have just been getting better and better every day. Today, we learned that Grundy and Kendall, as part of Region 2, were returned back to the phase 4 of Illinois' Restore Illinois plan. So they had successfully come all the way out of all of the tiered mitigations, the tiered resurgence mitigations that Illinois had instilled upon every county during the holidays. So that means the positivity rate has been continuing to go down. The cases per, I think, 100,000 tests have continued to go down. Sorry, cases per, I think it's 1,000 tests continue to go down. So things are looking up in our community and region. And so it points to us being able to do more. Now, some of those metrics are still the same as when we first initiated the hybrid plan, back in the fall. We're not quite out of the water yet. However, the other main thing that has happened in our region that the board is aware of is that educators have been moved into the phase 1B of the vaccination program. And I'm thrilled to announce that working with Grundy County, we expect that either later this week or soon, portions of our staff will actually begin to start receiving the COVID-19 vaccine. And of course, it's a 2-dose process. So it's not going to be a quick 2-week solution to some of the things that we have going on. In fact, it could take many weeks to work all the way through the hundreds of staff members of ours that indicated they would be interested in receiving the vaccine. However, I do believe that we all have a shared commitment that as the community and the county and the state, moved mountains to get educators, into the queue so that we can safely vaccinate our staff. We need to respond to that in working to get our schools open more and get more time and get more contact time with students in our buildings. So, from there, as the board knows, we immediately began working on a recommendation to get more kids into the buildings. As we've discussed many times before, the 2 main ways of getting the kids in the buildings more is either increase the number of kids in the building at any given time, which requires, going away from the 6-foot social distancing as we allow more students in each of those classrooms. Or it would be having more time with the smaller group of students that's here, which involves removing the mask and going with lunch. So as we collaborated within the district, within our admin team and sat down and discussed with at least shared these options with the leaders of our Teachers Association, the administrative team, focused in on, we believe that the right first step would be to increase the number of students in the building at the same time, while still maintaining that 4-hour day and keeping the mask on the entire time. So as, from there, I personally reached out to board members for a little bit of individual feedback because we were thinking to, recommend making this shift as vaccinations started to come to a close. And based on the feedback that I received from individual board members, not clearly as a whole, but individually, it was clear that the board was not willing to wait all the way until the vaccination process concluded. In fact, the general consensus that I was hearing is that the board would like to see this happen before the end of the 4th quarter. And so what we have for you to discuss tonight is really a proposal, not really a proposal, a recommendation that if we make this move, we put a no later than date on it. What I have floated out is by no later than March 1st, we will return to 5 days a week of in-person instruction for the students that choose to come back in person. Clearly, that will need to be shared, clearly with our community, with our, with the staff and the community. That means that the desks cannot be 6 feet apart anymore. That is the sacrifice and the one change that we'll have to make. But we do have the fact that vaccines will continue to be rolling out, and the number of people in our communities that are vaccinated will continue to increase, and the risk of community spread will continue to decrease, hopefully. Again, as we've seen, and some of the public comments pointed to some of the research, there continues to be data that says that when kids still wear masks in school, that we can still limit the risk of community spread, and it still can be effective. So we believe that if, as we roll forward, as we push to get more in-person time, we would like the board to consider targeting a date of no later than March 1st to get the kids back in for 5 hours a day. I know some of you have expressed to me, personally, that, you want to see this a lot faster. Some people were talking next week, some people were talking, in mid-February. There are still some logistic and operational pieces that are not in place right now. And it's not that we have not been planning for this. For instance, I don't know if Kathy Haas is on the call, transportation. Kathy, are you there? I can't quite see if she's in the participation list tonight or not, but
I doubt it.
Yeah, she was invited as a panelist, but so
we should have. Guess we should have invited Kathy. She would have been here.
Oh, we did. She was sent the link as a panelist. So, currently right now we are running about 27 bus routes, and if you recall from the fall, we said we had actually had about 9 to 10 drivers that resigned as we went into this school year. One of the things that we have right now is an actual shortage of drivers to drive the buses. We would probably need, I think Kathy Brosman at Transportation was predicting about 43 bus routes. Once we bring all the kids back, we clearly have to, reroute and make sure we're still limited to 50 kids on a bus is one of the other pieces from the state. And so, we're sending out mailers. We are doing our best to try to find drivers. We're calling the areas that have decided to stay fully remote to see if they have drivers that we can utilize during this time. So there is a ramp up of transportation. The other piece is, if we are going to be bringing in more kids, as we've discussed many times, and I know Rich Searle has an action item for you to consider later in the meeting, but one of the things is finding a way to clean the air and really recycle through. So Rich, can you jump in and kind of give a little talk about what you were, what your proposal will be when we get down to an action item?
Hey, Dr. Mount, I'm going to jump in there real quick while Rich is finding his unmute button. Just to clarify here real quickly, the plan that we're looking to move into no later than March 1st is 4 hours a day, 5 days a week. Just wanted to clarify that because I believe you actually stated 5 hours a day when you intended to mean 5 days a week. So 4 hours a day, 5 days a week with a no later than March 1st start.
Mr. Searle, have you unmuted? I cannot see the participant list here. One moment. Oh, there he is. Oh, we can't hear you though. I believe it is microphone problems. Nope. Oh, there we go.
How about now? Are we back?
There you go, sir.
All righty. Sorry, everybody. Just wanted to try to go over an option that we've been working on for about the last 6 months. This would be something that would help us get the kids back in a very safe way. We would like to request that we would spend approximately $350,000 of anticipated CARES Act funds to add a global plasma solution, a GPS system, to our junior high and our MIS schools and those schools are being targeted in particular with the brunt of this system because of the overcrowding. These systems would provide dedicated air purification units to air handlers and univents in both schools. This would compensate for our inability to socially distance and effectively provide bipolar ionization to virtually eliminate the SARS-CoV-2. This would be a very large project. It would utilize outside vendors, our in-house maintenance department, and we would install them as expeditiously as possible. To provide similar coverage for the other schools, we're proposing approximately 30 standalone units. I don't know if you have a picture available. I think I gave them to Dr. Munn. I don't know if you guys can see them or not. There is an example of that standalone unit. And basically we had them brought, so this is a picture of the filter. And here is a picture of one of the units that's on wheels. So these would be what we try to deploy in the elementary schools, where in the junior high and the in MIS, we try to use actually dedicated units. So these portable units, they're capable of purifying a minimum of 4,000 square feet per unit. If we find areas in the elementary school that need dedicated units, we'd add them in the future. Based on the research, we've determined that this probably is the only technology to provide us with an effective and safe learning environment for our students and faculty, and it'll provide us with years of future benefit. In other words, these units, will basically scrub the air, including many, many other issues that we have in schools, 24/7, 7 days a week. And, obviously the funds would be coming from the CARES Act, so we, with any luck, would be very little to no out-of-pocket expense for the district. The particular combination of air purification has proven safe and effective. It's been in schools now recently. It was tested in government facilities. It's in the White House. It's in all of the Department of Defense facilities. It's a very innovative technology. It uses basically positive and negative protons to disrupt the COVID-2 basically cell. And when it does that, it eliminates it. And it doesn't require anything that's not already in the atmosphere that we're not already experiencing on a day-to-day basis. So there's units out there that use just positive ions. There's units out there that use just negative ions. This uses both of them because that's what's in our natural environment. And it's the only one on the market that actually has been tested against SARS-2, and it eliminated it 100%. Like to try to ask, if you have any questions, I'd like to try to answer them the best I can. We've been basically working with this technology on and off for almost 6 months now, kind of waiting for other folks to test it out for us. Obviously, the CARES Act is giving us an opportunity to have the funding for that.
Mr. Steer.
Rich, I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
What's your target date for having these up and running?
So we have them held right now. We have enough held for all the schools. We could possibly get them as quick as 2 weeks. And depending on other demands that might be made of our staff, if we can keep that limited, we could, have these things installed. We're hoping in anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks.
After they're installed, will our staff be able to maintain them then? Or
very
will we
easy
have to go with
to
outside
maintain.
vendors?
Yeah, no, they're very easy to maintain. Actually, our staff will be involved with installing them as well. So in the future, if we want to add some, we would install them ourselves. Chris has got some other pictures there. I don't know if we can show them, but it shows a filter that basically is the simple portion of it. That's just a changeable specialized filter. It's about 7 inches thick. And then right above that is the positive and negative ion generator that actually eliminates the COVID-19. It also eliminates just about anything else in the air that is not something we would like. Kind of a interesting technology. Like I said, we've had our eye on it for pretty much the whole time I've been here, and wanting to let other folks prove for us before we jumped on that bandwagon. But it is certainly the only technology right now that actually is proven. You know, the how it would look in the junior high or the at MIS, the systems would be dedicated. They'd be actually in the univents. So we possibly, you know, would provide us an opportunity to not have to worry so much about makeup error. And I think that's our biggest problem that we have.
I believe Mrs. Thompson has a question.
I have quite a few questions. Mr. Searles, thank you very much for all your hard work and dedication on this and the cleaning of our schools. I've gotten great compliments. It's better than it's probably ever been. But I do have a couple of questions for you regarding this purchase. First of all, how much did we get towards this project from the CARES Act?
So
my understanding,
and I'll take that one, Rich, and Mary, jump in as well. We believe that the allocation from this is the second round of the ESSER grant. We expect it to be anywhere from 725,000 to 830,000. Mary, do I have those figures correct?
Yes, the number I saw most recently was 725,000.
Yeah, I saw one different document that showed 830, so we're waiting to have the final number given to us. But
so a couple of further questions here is what kind of a warranty are we would we be extended with this, and do the demands of this system with these filters, are these washable filters, are these filters that will have ongoing costs associated with?
The filters will definitely have ongoing costs associated with them. They are not washable. They're proprietary filters. They aren't terribly expensive in comparison to the filters that we use in our school, you know, on a day-to-day basis. You know, I was kind of pleasantly surprised to find that out. In terms of, you know, maintenance costs and things like that in the future, the warranty on it is not a lifetime warranty. It is a 10-year warranty. And, you know, I truly believe that's pretty consistent with almost any type of HVAC equipment that's out on the market. You know, from what I can see, it's fairly simple. So I don't anticipate issues. I think Dr. Munn and I had discussed some potential problems about the fact that these particular dedicated units would be sitting in those univents. And there is the possibility for when we're, you know, doing regular maintenance on those univents that we could disturb these, what they are basically strips is what they look like. They look like a blue strip. And, you know, obviously that's something that I need to work out, and I will have to find a solution to it.
So to be clear, technology is changing every day.
Correct.
This virus is changing every day with new strains and things of that nature. We're going to spend this money. What happens if then we have something else like this and these are then not working? I guess my question is the future responsibility of these. My other question is, if we're looking at 2 weeks for our junior high and our intermediate school, what was the cost of going full bore with this to protect all of our students without these standalone units? What was the difference in doing this across all of our schools versus just those 2 schools?
Sure, that's a great question. Almost an exact answer is about $97,000.
Okay, and these standalone units are costing us what?
These standalone units individually are $6,000. Now the standalone units kind of provide an added benefit. They are mobile. So if we happen to have an issue in a particular school, we can double down if we need to. And that particular fact is what kind of is leading me toward a mix of them instead of just going to dedicated units everywhere. I like the flexibility, and it also matches up well with the existing units that we have in our elementary schools. The units at the junior high in particular favor the dedicated units. So it's kind of, you know, go ahead, I'm sorry.
You had mentioned 4,000 square feet.
Mm-hmm.
There'd be quite a few that we would need for each of these schools in order to accommodate that square footage demand.
So basically we figured that out, and we aren't trying to cover every square foot of the school. We're trying to cover where the kids are at. And it works out to be approximately 6 units that are mobile per school. And there might be issues where we take 1 away or 2 away, or there might be issues where we find that the mobile units just aren't being as effective as they could be, and we'd add dedicated units down the road. But, you know, the fact that this is CARES Act money and not the school district's money, I think it's very much worth, you know, pursuing at this point.
Regardless of if it's CARES Act money, it's our taxpayers' money. So I'm
Sure.
looking at this as saying, if we believe that the best opportunity for us is in those 2 schools, in my opinion, the 36,000 versus the 90,000 to implement this school-wide of our district, to me, is not that hefty of a cost. That's something that I would be concerned about. If we wanted to purchase a couple of side units, to me, that makes more sense.
I mean, I certainly respect that opinion because we certainly looked at exactly what you're talking about. We went over and over it. And, you know, we came up with this idea of trying to maximize the value and limit the cost of installation. And that was our solution. I'm all for putting them in 100% at every school. And the fact that the funds are there, that might be the way to go.
Thanks for your time and your answers.
Thank you. Appreciate it, ma'am.
Great question, Mr. Thompson. Anybody else have questions for Rich over this one?
I do.
Vicki, go ahead.
You mentioned that you were checking to see and let other people use it before we decide to go ahead and purchase. So what were they have any suggestions, anything differently that they would do? How do they perform? How long have they lasted? What was the maintenance?
So, you know, in general, the consensus that I've been able to find has been excellent. There has been some issues with the, I guess, initial ones from factories. There's been some returns. I asked that question. They stand behind them. They overnight whatever is necessary if there is an issue. They self-monitor. So if they do fail to perform, we know what's happening. In terms of watching other folks, you know, I think the biggest, at least for me, the biggest thing there is if they continue to purchase them. Obviously, they would stop purchasing them if they felt like they weren't performing. And this company is just exploding. It is really the only technology out there that literally will scrub everything out of the air.
So
And
let me ask.
Used in school settings?
Pardon me?
Were they used in school settings?
I believe the last I checked, there was 468 schools. And I believe there's another 190 that have purchased. And we're standing in front of those 190 right now.
And if we've already placed holds on the ones for the junior high and MIS, do we know the demand is so high? Do we know we would be able to procure the rest of them if the board decided to go that direction?
I mean, we would have to make a rapid decision because obviously, you know, they want to sell their capacity and their capacity is limited. We have a hold on them out of basically I guess for a better word, a business relationship between the owner of this company and the gentleman that does our commercial HVAC work for us. So, you know, we do have a bit of a slight edge, I guess, if you want to call it that. But I've been told, you know, just flat out that they're not going to hold it indefinitely.
Well, it is listed as a possible action item when we're done kind of discussing the whole return. How do other board members feel about modifying the proposal to include Rich, I'm going to get the names of the equipment wrong, but you're talking about the pieces that go inside the air handler units.
Yeah, there's many different types that we had to mix and match, but basically they're the dedicated units, so they're installed, you know, permanently, and we can definitely switch to that. And obviously, you know, that's the ultimate way of handling it. I mean, the issue that comes with that is it's going to slow things down. We're not going to get them as fast as we would with the mobile units. Those mobile units could be up and operating within potentially weeks. And when we go to install, we're only going to be able to install a certain number of these at a time. I mean, it's going to have to be done on a second shift. It's going to have to be done at night, and it's going to be kind of ugly. You know,
well, if we were talking about the original proposal of students going to school 5 days a week, 4 hours a day, you would have the afternoon to work on that. Plus the fact that we had already approved things for the cleaning of these classrooms. How far in your project plan would that set us back, or when would you be able to report back to us as soon as that would be and what it would look like for an installation date?
To give you a complete project plan, I'm probably going to need at least to the end of this week, especially with that new information. You know, it's pretty much changing by the day, and it's kind of dependent on getting these professionals here when we need them, and you know, in a economic way. So I don't have an answer for you right now, but I certainly can try to get you one by Friday.
I have a quick question for you, Rich. With these portable units, how far away would they be from classrooms, and are they noisy? Do they have like a run, you know?
So that's what I was hoping, that we had an in-person meeting tonight, because I had a unit here and it was going to be operational for everybody. So there's one sitting at MPC right now. The actual sound that I heard when we actually had a test in the MPC gym about 6 months ago, and it was minimal. It really was not bad. It works on negative air pressure, so it doesn't need to be right next to the kids. That's why these portable units are still a valid option. You can put one of these in the hallways as long as you have air exchanges through the doorways or through the actual venting that goes between the rooms and the hallways. It'll provide negative pressure and it'll bring the air to it. Obviously, the more of them and the more ease of access you have for that negative air pressure, it'll work more efficiently. You'll get more turns out of it. I don't think it would impact the children in any way, even the portable units, but the units that are on the univents, those are extremely quiet, virtually no sound whatsoever. So those are, you know, by far the optimal way to go. Again, it's a labor thing, right? That's all this means. All this is labor. It's just how fast can it be done?
So I have to ask the question that's probably on a lot of parents and teachers' minds, is if you knew about this and we had this as a demo 6 months ago, why'd we wait until now?
Very clearly, because number one, it wasn't being made. And number two, the technology was in the phase of trying to get approved. So it had been given to the White House, it had been given to DOD buildings, it had been given to universities in an attempt to, you know, basically prove what they said they could do. And in that time period, it's done that. They've built their factories, they've gotten their productivity to where they can actually, you know, comply with the demand for them. I could have been on that list of the testers. The difference is that at that point, you know, we really didn't think we could fund these, because that would have been a large sum of money for this district at the time that we didn't even know if, you know, if the COVID-19 would still be with us.
So I think I must have misunderstood you. Did you not say that we had one 6 months ago in our physically had it?
We did. We have it. We had it as a demo. That's how they're typically brought around to show folks. We had it for about 2 hours. And what they did to show us was they brought a particle meter into our school, and they showed us how much possible SARS-2 or SARS in general, based on the size of the molecule, was in the MPC gym at that moment. If I'm remembering right, it was like 336,000 particles. And then they plugged this machine in and ran it for 15 minutes and brought it down to about 100 particles. Obviously, at that point, I realized this was something that probably held merit, But again, it was still in a testing phase and they had no factories. So it was pretty much a moot point.
So
I mean, you can't buy it till they make it.
If I could clarify what I think I heard Mr. Scholl say, it was like, he is not, Rich, can you clarify? Have we personally had a unit for 6 months, or did you?
No, we had it as a demo. We had it as a demo for one day.
So again, I guess I come back to the question of, if they're out here with demos, they knew they would be able to increase production to have this done. I guess sure. I would, as a board member, would have liked this to have been brought to us as an option before now, being that we've had our kids out of school this long. And second of which, when you did that in the gym, was it the portable unit?
It was the portable unit.
So that was only 4,000 square foot. How many square feet are our gyms?
I would guess, and I don't know this for fact, but that MPC gym, I'm guessing, is somewhere around, just guessing, probably 5,000, 6,000.
So my question to add on to that was, if we did purchase these portable units, really wouldn't be at their maximum capacity use should we use them for sporting events and things of that nature?
That is correct. They would not be at their maximum capacity. Correct. And the other thing to keep in mind is there's been approximately, that I know of, 200 to 300 different types of these particular units, different variations. Many have been proven to be completely unable to perform what they've stated they could. So, you know, the small amount of time that's gone by, the roughly 5.5 months, very, very quick for development of a product. And I certainly, if it wasn't for this particular situation that we're in, I wouldn't even be comfortable with going after this right now. I just feel like we need to move forward, and, you know, it's the only thing I know out there that can move us forward.
Okay, so if you Googled this online, you would see that there's only this company that does this. There's no other competition out there that we could go against to
no,
see
there's many different competitors out there that use either negative or positive, or hospitals that use a portion of UV lights. This is the only one that holds the patent for the negative and positive ions. So there is no direct comparison to this technology that I'm aware of.
So essentially they name their price.
I'm not going to argue that. Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Say, Rich, I have a question for you about the standalone units. What are the dimensions of these? When I looked at the picture, they look like they could be about 24 inches wide and 24 inches deep. Is that a good estimate?
Yeah, you're very close. It's roughly about 2 by about, I believe, 20. And I believe the height of it is, I want to say it's about 4.5 feet tall. So they're not terribly large by any means, but they seem to have a very oversized, you know, the electric blower that's in it seems to be oversized for the unit. They seem to perform way beyond their specifications. And, you know, we were kind of taking that into account when we tried to figure out what the schools needed. So we were kind of, you know, I guess for a better word, we were leaning on the fact that these things may overperform.
Will this be a hindrance in hallways at the elementary schools, especially MES?
I mean, you know, MES is a good example. We looked at different hallways at different schools, and we figured that if we put these at the ends of the hallways, kind of out of the way of general traffic flow, they'd still perform well enough that there'd be negative air. And as long as we were able to get the teachers to help us in terms of keeping their doors somewhat open, you know, that would certainly help the capacity of the units. If they have to draw from under the doors, that would limit the the ability.
So these basically just plug into an electrical outlet?
That's correct. Yeah, these particular models. Now the ones that are dedicated, that takes quite a bit of wiring. And that's not something that's impossible. It's just something that we're going to have to learn how to do.
And these built-in ones, if we went that route, would they work in the old building in MPC as well?
I mean, absolutely. And, you know, the built-in ones would work in any univent, and there is a couple of air handlers at MPC. It's just not as equipped as some of the other schools. So that might be a place where some of these mobile units might be pretty effective.
And you're calling them mobile units. Are they like on wheels, or is this something that's going to take a couple people to carry them around to?
I mean, it potentially, if you were lifting them, it does take a couple people. I lifted one about 2 hours ago or so. They are on wheels, and they look kind of like the set of wheels that you'd see under a table saw. If you have it, you know, that type of thing at your house. They're pretty stout wheels. These aren't light, but they aren't built so that you can push them over. Those wheels, that was one of our concerns, was that, you know, kids would get hurt. And they have made these for school settings so the base on the wheels stick out to such a point that they're almost impossible to tip them over.
I guess from my perspective, I appreciate the discussion, but I'd like to get these things going as soon as possible. And by the time we get them in and operational, we'll be pretty close to summertime, and then we can expand them as necessary over the summer. How's that sound?
I certainly agree with that. I also think that I can probably get them, at least some of these, if we initiate the portable ones relatively quickly.
And so just so we're clear, by doing this and installing these and putting these in all the buildings, this is for the safety and well-being of all of our staff, teachers, students, and all of that, because obviously that's what we have been doing this whole time, is we want to make sure that our staff and, I mean, teachers, custodians, students, of course, like everyone is safe and healthy. That's kind of why we've been getting all the gruff from the parents, because we've been going so long with the 2 days, and you know, we've been so limited with the scheduling, because we have been taking staff and their concerns at heart, and just making sure everyone has been safe, both the children and the staff. So I just want to make sure that we're completely clear that this will make everyone healthy, correct?
I mean, the way to look at this, it's going to scrub the air. So if you're breathing the air, it's going to be clean. And that's all of us, obviously. You know, the thing that it kind of compensates for, I mean, I hate to keep saying that word, but it's the only way I can explain it. It kind of, for a better word, it takes the place of modern equipment that we don't have. So it's, you know, it's a fix, and it's a permanent fix. It's not going to give us new equipment in our schools, but in this particular instance, with the challenge that we have of not being able to turn air fast enough, this will remedy that solution. It also has that side benefit of flu, strep throat, all the other things that we've all seemed to have forgotten about that will be back soon, I'm sure. This will eliminate them. So it's, you know, it's got some benefit out there. It's far beyond just COVID-19.
Perfect. Again, and parents, still don't send your children if they have fevers or right.
Don't send them. Don't send them. But at least if they're breathing it, it'll get it. So
I guess I go back to, what is the average square foot of one of our buildings? If we look at that, and you're talking about 6 units per building of these temporary units, you're saying that the teachers need to keep their doors open. That's not to me a viable solution. I feel like we should do what we have the money to do for it and find a way to get it done.
I'm not going to argue any of that. I am going to say that what we try to do was economically find a solution that would cover a majority of the area. in the elementary schools with these mobile units. The best solution is to just put them where they belong permanently. There is no doubt about it.
Just so I can add to that, because I know Rich and I have talked about this as well. The addition to these mobile units is the speed in which they can be deployed. That was the other part in his consideration of procuring these, was a balance of permanent and also speed of deployment.
So what you're saying, Dr. Ruland, is we spend the money on the units 6 per building, but ultimately we're not going to use them because the end game is to put the other 90,000 into the rest of the buildings?
So I would have something to say on that, and that would be absolutely false. If we did go ahead and purchase these mobile units, they can be hung in the gyms, they can be placed in libraries, they can be used in just a variety of large settings that are in every single school. So they can supplement. It wouldn't be a loss. It would just be a much faster way of getting some relief to the schools than waiting for, you know, the time it's going to take to do it in a long-term way. And I think, you know, Jim had mentioned summer, and, you know, he rightfully so, he might not be, you know, wrong about that. I mean, it could take us a while to get these things installed. So I was trying to find a way to balance that. And
So
that was our, I'm sorry.
So if we approve this tonight, how soon do you anticipate that we could get at least the portable units in our
The portable
building?
units, you should see the portable units in 2 weeks.
The dedicated units in the 2 other schools, how long for that?
Hoping we can start getting some of those in 2 weeks as well. But then we have to install them.
But I just want to say, Renee, am I understanding you correctly that you don't think we have enough in the buildings, correct?
That's correct.
That's correct. You know what? And I
I
kind of agree with you. If it's going to kill everything else, and that even just protects our staff and children even more, and we have the money to do so, I too think, why not try? And I think we should see about putting then, like, let's reevaluate the square footage of the buildings and see which building might need, I mean, because maybe MIS needs an extra one, or, I mean, MES is, yeah, it's a, like, I guess I'm going to call it a ranch. Sorry, but it's more spread out that way. But the other ones go up. So actually, I have a question for you, Mr. Rich. Does it ventilate, like, you know, heat rises and air sinks?
So it draws from the bottom, and it pushes the air through the filter system. Then it pushes it through the ion generator, and then out the top of it, which is hard to see in this poor picture that I gave you, it actually, you know, exits the air. So it's kind of like your furnace, kind of like your house furnace.
So do you save money on the ones that are like Jones and Walnut and Ox, and then would you save money on, I don't want to say save money, but would you save on buildings like that? And then MES would be more of, you would need more units on that because it's more spread out. Am I understanding?
So we targeted MIS and the junior high because it's just massively overcrowded. Right. Therefore, we're going to have failure. So this is the only option there. We looked at the, I guess you would want to say, less overcrowded schools, and we tried to, for a better word, with the manufacturer, kind of extract what we could get away with. Is that a good word? What we could get away with, and still make it work, right? That in the fastest way possible. And I think that's what Dr. Ruland was referring to. We've had that discussion several times, and it's, I just didn't want to see a big chunk of the district going without anything for an extended period of time. So we were trying to weigh that out. And obviously, you know, it is the Mrs. Thompson is correct. It's the best thing to do is just put them in everywhere. And we obviously have the way to obtain them now, and the ability to obtain them, but I still am not certain that big chunks of our district will be covered in a timely manner unless we use some of these portable units.
I have a suggestion.
Got you.
Why would we not go with 10 units per building, including MJHS and MIS? If this is so high in demand, I'm sure that they would be fine to buy back some of them and credit us towards our future purchases of the dedicated systems. To me, I feel we don't neglect Minooka Junior High or intermediate school, because you can say we can get the units in 2 weeks, but there's no knowing when they can be installed for sure or for certain. My suggestion would be to go back to the supplier, ask for 10 units a piece with the option to buy back the units from MJHS and MIS.
I mean, honestly, that's a great suggestion. We did discuss different options like that in terms of flexibility. And to be honest with you, I think their demand is so high. They would certainly probably work with us in something like that. But I don't know if we get, I guess it would be just like buying a new car, right? There's going to be a large depreciation once that thing is turned on. And I kind of looked at it as, what can I do to get an effective, I guess, layer of protection for everybody in as quick as quick as possible.
I will even add in that with Mrs. Thompson's suggestion that, there's nothing that says we have to sell them back to the factory. There could very well be other districts that chose not to use their funds in this manner. And if we have used items that they can possibly purchase at a discounted rate, I'm sure we could get dollars back into the district to still be effective stewards of the taxpayer dollars there. That was a great suggestion.
And with that suggestion, I would suggest, if we're only getting 4,000 square foot per unit and we're looking at 6 for our other buildings, we could then make up the difference if we needed to once the junior high and the intermediate school is fully installed with the dedicated unit. I feel that with this being such a high demand, you're not going to see that great of a depreciation. And you're right, our community districts would more than be happy to probably take them off of our hand if there's such a demand that they couldn't get them, especially if we gave them a discount towards it. So as a steward of taxpayer money, I feel that that would be my suggestion to revise that motion for this next portion.
Did I hear a motion, Renee?
Oh, we're not to that point yet, but when we do, I definitely am going to. Thank you.
Let's get this going. We don't want to be the ends at the bottom of the train. We want to be on the top of the train. So I say, let's get moving.
Sorry, I wasn't, I was muted there when I tried to say anything. Any other questions for Mr. Searle on that?
I say we get moving.
Very well. Actually, if we can now, I mean, let's kind of go backwards, because we kind of jumped to departments in discussing what we would like the board to consider for returning kids to school 5 days a week for in-person instruction, no later than March 1st. But as you just heard, and Mrs. Fisher kind of summed it up well, as I said earlier, going to this route means that we will be, having to tell our parents and our schools that we will not be able to maintain that 6-foot social distancing. I know we have admins from the junior high, admins from MIS that are on here, and they can speak to the class sizes that they have if you have questions about that. But this equipment would be the counter to that, where yes, we're still asking everyone to be in a mask for the 4 hours that they are in attendance. But by being closer than 6 feet, there's the real risk or the real fear of the air circulating around. And this was the solution that Mr. Searle felt appropriate to bring to the board to try to counter that fear and that risk of that airborne transmission. So thank you for finding this product and coming up with a plan to help us get it into our district. But clearly, and I've spoken with most of the board members, and I know some of your individual thoughts on things, but this is the first time you've come back as a group to discuss. So we have our building administrators, on the call. If you have questions that you would like to know, you know, how and, you know, what obstacles they have to implementing this within, you know, the next few weeks as we start to get going. They are here to answer questions.
And thank you for that preface, Dr. Mann. As we all know, our goal is to get these kids back in school. We've received countless emails from the public, and we appreciate you voicing your concerns. Some of them not so nice at times, because we do take our jobs as your elected officials very seriously. And our goal is to protect both of our students and our teachers. But what I would like to see, and I look forward to the comments from my other members of the board, is I think that March 1st is too late. I think we're missing the boat on that. I did have the opportunity, and I would like to thank Mrs. Sarah Massey, Mr. Jason Finkelstein, Ms. Andrea Carroll. I am very concerned about how that affects our junior high. We have all of these schools, but everybody feeds into one junior high. That being said, I think it's important for Mrs. Massey to maybe give her perspective on how far they've went to try to accommodate our students. I, as a board member, didn't even know and had questions, and they were so gracious to sit with me and to talk about how dramatically our junior high is affected. Listen, folks, we didn't pass a referendum, but we sure needed one. Our junior high is at capacity. There is not one spot of that building that is not being filled by a learning space for children, be it our band room, be it our cafeteria. And that's really where we're falling into some real constraints with getting our junior high students back full time. I would like everybody to give their opinion, but I think it's really important that when we fall on some issues like the crowding that we're having in our junior high, it's not as cut and dry as it is in some of the other schools. And it took me listening to them to gain a better perspective. And that's just my opinion. And I'm sure that each administrator would like to talk about their concerns, but I wanted to give my own personal thank you to them for explaining to me and showing me. I actually was physically present at the school, and they took the time to sit down and really go through their plan with me. And it's not as easy as you would think.
That's a perfect handoff of the baton to our junior high administrators if you're willing to let them jump in and share some of the obstacles that they face.
Thank you, Mrs. Thompson. Yes, we had an opportunity to sit down and just kind of lay out. Currently, we are using every space that we have in our building as a learning space, save some of the offices in the main office there. Our meeting room where we hold our special education and 504 meetings, that has been turned into a classroom. Our gymnasium is a classroom. The curtains dropped in the large gym, and there are 2 classrooms in there. Our cafeteria currently houses a classroom. Our MITC, which is like our workout center for our gym teachers, that's also a classroom. Our teachers' lounge has been converted, just like many of the other elementary schools, into a quarantine room. So we genuinely are using every space. And when we talk about, I know Mrs. Thompson, one of your questions to us was about the idea of introducing lunch back into the day. When we talk about doing that, you know, our solution, I think, would be to put the gymnasium, use that space. But then the problem becomes we have 2 classrooms then that need to go somewhere else, and we genuinely don't have a space to put those classrooms, in addition to the cafeteria classroom that would have to be relocated because of the noise from serving the lunches and things of that nature. So, you know, thank you for coming and listening. You know, we are creative in how we have maximized the space in our building. You know, should we welcome more students back to our building, our class sizes will go up. When we measured the 6-foot distancing, and I know Gina at MIS, Mrs. Peekle is in a similar situation, we could fit about 15 students in a classroom spaced 6 foot apart. I just checked with our geometry teacher, and currently with the choices that families have made, 20 of her 32 students So she's got a total of 32 students in her geometry class. 20 of those students would be in-person learners if we were to return everyone to the classes now. And we wouldn't be able to maintain, obviously, that 6-foot distancing with those 20 learners in the classroom. Understanding that some parents will choose differently, those numbers will change. But I know Mrs. Peekle, if I can bounce past to you for a minute, I know she has a class of, I think, 37 or 38. And that's causing her, a headache in regards to not knowing where to allocate that classroom in her building, when we increase the number of students back in. So it is a headache in trying to not welcome the students back, because we definitely want that, but in truly trying to find the space within our building to welcome those students back as safely as we possibly can.
And if I may, real quick, Mrs. Conquest has actually brought up a very good point to me. As we return to in-person learning for 5 days a week, more parents most probably will elect to send their children back, which increases those numbers dramatically. So it's kind of shooting in the dark.
That's a hypothesis that we have as well. Clearly, depending on, how the board kind of directs us to go after this, we will be getting more communications out to our family, and then again, asking them to make yet another selection of what they would intend to do once we implement a 5-day a week of in-person learning. But, one of the things that we haven't gotten back out to the board recently, because the numbers seemed to change, by the week. But the junior high currently is up to about 45% of students going remote. Sarah, did I have that figure correct? I didn't know if things have continued to change, but
no, sir.
Yeah. And so that's helping the numbers right now. In the fall, those were in the low 30%, like maybe between 32 to 35 or whatever. So we don't know if, again, parents just got exasperated with the continued hybrid situation and decided to just go full remote, or if other life conditions changed that led them to make that choice. But that's a similar percentage to what some of the other bigger schools, I know Morris High School had a pretty large number that chose to go remote. I believe Minooka High School is currently around 40%ish, something like that. At least the last number that I heard. So it'll be interesting to see how that shifts when we make the announcement that we're going back to 5 days of in-person.
I think one of the things I'm hearing is we'd like to get that program started as soon as possible. If we go to a majority of the portable units and put extra ones in the junior high and the intermediate school, with the idea that they will be transferred over to over the summer into the more permanent units, it speeds up the position considerably, because all you gotta do is move them in, set them up, plug them in. Right? Is that and at that point we can practically eliminate the 6-foot spacing, because we're taking care of the air. It was the problem with that 6-foot spacing.
Yeah, that is the theory. That's now. I mean, I've not heard anything from the health departments that they are anywhere near giving up on the recommendation to not be 6 feet apart. But this would, like I said, this would at least that air purification would at least be our counter to if we are choosing to do this and knowing that risk going in. These are the other strategies that we're putting in place to help mitigate that. I know, Sarah, you were trying to involve Mrs. Peekle there. Mrs. Peekle, do you want to give a similar kind of synopsis, or any member of your team, as to the obstacles that you face at MIS?
Yeah, I got it. Sarah's right. We do have a class of 37. We built our schedule so our students weren't moving throughout our building, kind of holding them still and moving our teachers on carts. The obstacle we face when we do this is the parents need to make the decision. Once they let us know the kids who are coming back, some of those classes, if they end up being in the 30s, I'd like to move them to bigger spaces, to bigger classrooms, potentially the band room or the music room, where there is more space to spread out those 37 kids if they all come back. Right now, that class of 37 isn't a class of 37. They're 6 feet apart because of the people who have opted for remote and the alpha slice. But if all 37 come back, I want to do the best that we can to set up the best environment for those kids. That's going to take us a little bit of time just to configure that. As soon as we get the data from the parents, we can move forward deciding where to put the classes depending on the numbers that choose to come back in person once you guys make your decision. So those are just some of our obstacles that we're facing. Right now we are 6 feet apart. The kids stay in the same cohort for the most part, but if the parents change their minds or if we get an influx of kids, we have to move them to better spacing in our building.
Any other questions for Mrs. Pico or Ms. Massey?
I do.
I'm so quiet. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm just like taking all this in. I'm like being a sponge. I'm sorry. I just have a couple. Sorry, Emily. First of all, Ms. Conquest, thank you so much for reaching out and calling some of us. Like, not, you know, just, I mean, it's something that it was just very nice. I guess the stinking COVID has put everything just, because now we're losing bus drivers, you know, like, so, I mean, and you can't even, I have to tell you, like, I am the worst. I'm so sorry, Miss Massey and Mr. Finkelstein, because yep, this one here has not responded to your, is my kid coming back remote or not? Yeah, so I'm totally guilty. Because I can't keep up with it. It's like, I mean, it's just hard because it's, before you know it, it's like third quarter, second quarter. I mean, the time's going by so fast. But anyway, have we given the parents like are a lot of the parents choosing to maybe drive their kids to school and not take a bus? I mean, because we have a lot of, I know that just adds to the congestion of.
So actually, the admin teams from the campus, you see it on a daily basis, and I don't know if Mr. Souza has quick access to numbers about how many students indicated that they would still be utilizing transportation or not, but if anyone can respond there.
Yeah, from the junior high, we definitely have quite an uptick in car riders. But you know, we kind of put a new process in place at the beginning of the year, and we've been running that all through these quarters here, and it's been pretty smooth. Mr. Gensler kind of worked with some of his campus monitors to get that in place, and we have a definite uptick. We've got quite a few more car riders. But it's pretty smooth. We push to get them out of the campus pretty quick so that the buses can get on their way too. But I don't have exact numbers, but there's definitely a lot more car riders than we've had in the past.
Yeah, I'm just like wondering if even if there's like I guess we can't even like stagger anything with that, can we? Is there like, have we talked to Miss K, is it Brosman?
Are you talking about Kathy
Brosman? Who's the one that runs for us? Because she does a phenomenal job. Bussy, she's gonna get so mad at me.
Yeah, so Kathy Brosman is
Brosman. There you go. Thank you.
Kind of the lead dispatcher for 201 over at the transportation. Kathy Haas is our director of transportation that we share at the high school.
Right, but I mean the one that actually runs it for us.
We have looked at staggering times. It's honestly, staggering times is you'd almost have to shift one of our grade levels entirely. Well, I don't even know that does it because we still have the same number of routes for the campus. You know, aside from completely splitting those two buildings apart with their start and end times, but that still doesn't solve the fact that we have just as many routes kind of at the elementary levels. They're just spread out a little bit more. So. You know, it's just being a large district, and we just have not been able to pull people in to be bus drivers. It's just not a profession that we have been able to convince people to step into in the middle of a pandemic, because you're sitting at a bus with you know, up to 50 young children that if they have been wearing their masks, we appreciate that, but it's still a crowded bus, and it was the #1 area that we had to quarantine people from as soon as we had a positive or a close contact.
Right. All right, let's just throw Robinson on there.
There you go, Mrs. Robinson. You are now getting your CDL.
There you go. I'm sorry. I'm just, it's not one thing, it's another. And it's just.
So one of the ideas that I'm going to work with our principals and possibly even the PTOs, you know, this is something that I've been thinking about since my conversation with transportation today. is potentially asking our community to help step up yet again and start to arrange some community carpools to see if, you know, not everybody has the ability to drive their children to school. We know that, but you know, we're all in this together. And if there are the means of creating some neighborhood carpool systems where we can both minimize the number of cars that are coming for Car Rider, yet increase the ridership to where maybe we don't need quite as many routes if we can get people to commit like that. We are also, there's some other things that we're doing to try to free up some drivers that due to confidentiality reasons, I can't discuss in this setting, but we are working on transportation. We do not want that to be the barrier that stops us from opening when we believe we are ready.
Well, I think we definitely need to get the hours and days in line in order for that to happen. So, but I mean, I obviously can't speak for the parents, but I know that we definitely need to get these children back in school, more so the, younger ones. So, all right, I'm just going to mute myself again, and you guys are asking awesome questions. Just
anyone else have questions for the?
We approve this plan.
Go ahead, Vicky.
How long, once you get the word out to parents, what are you going to put down as your deadline for them to respond, saying as, if we can get these units in 2 weeks and set up, perhaps we could start as soon as either 2 weeks or 3 weeks at the latest, if we know our numbers, and put a deadline, and not extend it. The parents have to make up their mind. They want them back in school, so they have to make up their mind, and not having us wait for them to make that decision. So we know.
My response would be like, I would plan to work with our teams to get communication out to families later this week. Honestly, we would probably ask for a deadline of no later than next Wednesday, just to help us with the planning. However, the buildings will be the first to tell you that we don't get very good, we don't have a very high success rate of those deadlines. They generally, the offices have to spend a great deal of time calling. I know at the campus, it was 300 to 400 families to try to inquire as to what they thought they were going to do. So a Wednesday deadline really turns into about another 3 or 4 days minimum for them to get final numbers. But hopefully they'll be able to have a good feel.
So we have to be stern on that then, and we just have to cut it off. If they miss the deadline, meaning like,
it's not that easy though, because then you have kids coming to school that you don't have space for. It's about planning. It's about, it's about transportation.
So if you have then a set time, because the school district that I work in, they set a time, and kids that their parents missed the deadline, their kids didn't get to come today. And it's so unfortunate for those children, but their kid didn't get to come. And so now they have to wait till fourth quarter. And I am so sad. Trust me, I am so sad for them, because that child should be in school. But how many reminders and how many things can you send out? I don't want to be that hard person, but how many, but look at how many students you're holding up for one person. Like, there has to be other things to hold other people accountable.
Mrs. Fisher, I respectfully declined to,
that's okay.
Because you admitted yourself that you didn't fill it out.
I know, so you know what? That would have been on me. That's
right,
so.
But my concern is we can't hold our kids' education hostage. I'm a working mother. You're a working mother. That happens, and sometimes they can't meet that deadline. All we can do is have a campaign, put it on our Facebooks, do what we can to really get a better turnout and percentage of parents who cooperate, and let us know. If anybody else has any suggestions, please let me know. But I am not one for holding kids accountable for their parents' mistakes.
Yes, and if I could chime in there, I would not recommend, at least at this time, being very firm in that if you don't respond, you don't get to come back to school this year. Our families have done an awful lot for us, many of them reluctantly, some of them were grateful that they had the remote option. But just as our teachers have moved mountains to make this work, our families have been absolutely fantastic. And so I would prefer that the board adopt a more family-friendly response to that one, to where when we ask them for a deadline, some of them need to see what the final numbers in the building are going to look like before they might be comfortable sending their kids. So it's a chicken or the egg type situation. So
well,
I
those
get
who
that.
don't
If
respond,
if they're waiting for like a number or something, then we can always extend a week. I'm just saying, it's like we can't just keep holding things open because we have only a fourth quarter left. Like, we have to get something going, and like, we don't have anything planned, and we have all these. I'm just going to mute because I'm just going to get.
No, I think we're all looking, we do have a plan, and I think we're all looking to get them back, but those who don't respond are often the kids that need us the most. And so it's really important that we find ways, and we all take it upon ourselves to really encourage parents and be very communicative, board members, parents that are watching us now. I know our administrators in our buildings do it, but we really have to be stewards of making sure that we get that word out so that we do get a better turnout. And I wasn't trying to disagree with you. I have a difference of opinion. That's why there's so many of us and not just a couple of us. So I apologize if it came off the wrong way, but I just wanted to make my opinion known.
All right, I'm going to try now. So I have a couple of things I want to say. I agree, Renee. I don't think we should do the cutoff. I know that phone calling is a lot of work for our administrative staff. If there's any way we can support that, I am happy to do that. I just wanted to say, especially with our buildings that have 37 kids, 32 kids in the class, I recognize that this is a huge undertaking for our administrators. I recognize that you guys have been working all year to make changes as we bring them. And I recognize that not all of our staff will be, happy with each decision we make, but I do truly feel that the starting point of 5 half days for our students that it's time, and that it's in the best interest of our students, especially with offering the remote option for families that doesn't work for. As a board member who is a parent in this district, balancing what I know to be best globally and know to be best for my children sometimes doesn't mesh. And I do feel that now that is what's globally best. And I think I hear that as other board members are talking as well. But I do want to acknowledge that we recognize that it's a lot of work for you guys, and that it can't be, happening overnight. But I do appreciate that you're willing to put in that time and get us back at that no later than March 1st deadline.
Chris, can I ask a question?
Of course you can, Al.
Let me chime in here. We have a staff that does an outstanding job. All of our teachers, all of our administrators, our kids have been doing a good job now almost a year on remote learning. And you know what? We've been slighting one group, the parents. They've been doing an outstanding job. It sounds like we're putting a little pressure on them right now, but you know what, parents? I understand what you're doing. This is a tough job, being a parent and helping your kids at school at the same time. We're here and we want to get your kids back in school, and we want them to be safe, and we want you to be happy. We want everybody to be happy. And that's a tough job because everybody's not going to be happy. But I appreciate everything that you do. I appreciate the emails you send to me. I listen to what you say. And thank you. Thanks for what you do. And with this March 1st startup, I think we're looking at everybody's best interests.
Thanks, Al. My question is, that's the latest by March 1st, correct?
Yes, but
so not a March 1st startup.
If it takes 2 weeks, parents need a definite date. If we say, March 1st will be the latest, and then I'm looking at a calendar here, and we change it to be March 15th or March 20 or February 15th.
February 15th.
That's only 2 weeks away. And I don't think we can get the air purifiers in place in 2 weeks.
No, but we can get students in there with all the cleaning supplies February 15th. I think we need to have them in there.
If I may,
I don't
just
think
add
so.
just to add a little bit more information to the discussion. Part of the original plan, as we talked about dates, is also in consideration of the vaccine for our staff. So again, as we talk about trying to move dates forward, looking at best interest, I do want to bring that forward again as another factor in the consideration of when we looked at our start dates. Again, we're all wanting to have kids back as soon as possible, but again, we're also looking at balancing parents, staff, students, and trying to do the best in a very difficult situation.
I think Andy Karcheski had his hand up, if I saw that.
Oh, it's hard to get in here. Yeah, I do agree with, and I'm not going to reiterate everything that was said, but yeah, you can walk down just my block with my neighbors and come up with 10 different opinions on what is right. But generally, everybody has the same interest in mind. My point, and I don't know if it can be answered by you, Dr. Mann, or some of the administrators, but I like to be proactive and look to problems that might develop. And bringing everybody back into school for 5 days, some of the problems we ran into with just the hybrid was some of the staffing, some of the teachers because of the quarantine issues. Has anybody sort of looked to the future on what we're going to do about that? By bringing more kids in the classroom, I think we're going to have some major quarantining issues, and what we can do to sort of get ahead of that is my question.
Yeah, I will take that one. Yes, that's clearly going to be part of the communication that we send out to our communities as well, because you know, one of the things that we were able to do well was avoid many of the quarantines because we knew that people were 6 feet apart. And you know, we will be going into this with eyes wide open, knowing that by putting people closer together, there are bound to be more issues of quarantine. We will be working with the buildings to try to prevent the staff from being within 6 feet whenever we can, to where you know, at least we aren't knocking out the staff of the building to you know, possibly you know, preempt some type of building shutdown. But as everyone knows, especially in our elementary and our preschools, those teachers they are not tied to just a computer the whole time. They are up and they are moving, and that's the way it is. So we do expect that additional quarantines could happen. And again, as you know, we've beefed up our permanent subs to where we've increased the number of humans that are in the building to try to help us with that, to prevent something. But yes, Mr. Karcheski, we do expect that additional quarantines will occur as we put people closer together for longer periods of time. And we trust, and we will, you know, if we need to bring additional permanent subs to the board for you to consider, we will do so if it helps us get people in the buildings to stay open.
Adding on to that, Dr. Mann, I would really like to see our teachers have a dedicated remote teacher and a dedicated in the classroom teacher. I've heard from many of our staff members that they're struggling having both in classroom students and remote students. I know I've brought this up every board meeting. I wasn't at the one last month due to my surgery. However, it's really important to me. And as I have listened, and I've been in several classrooms and heard several remote sessions as well. It is so distracting for at least our younger ones. Some of our older ones have told me otherwise, some of our older students. However, with the younger learners, it is so extremely distracting. And I'd like to hear from some of our administrators on how they feel or what they've heard, because like I said, it's not one, it's not two, it's several. And I've heard it on the parent end too, and I've witnessed it myself. So that's one of my things I wanted to bring up. And the 15th also is, February 15th is President's Day. So we wouldn't be in school that day anyway. But it really is important to me to see that date move up from March 1st. But I really would like to hear and also thank our champions MPC who have been there every day and haven't had that split. So thank you very much, MPC staff. You've done an amazing job. You've been there every day. And I really would like to hear from them as well.
So Dr. Rulin and or any of our admin team, the ongoing discussion of you know, why we moved away from the full-time remote teachers when it comes to you know, quarantining, et cetera.
I'll jump in there real quickly, and then I'll let my building admin add to it. The original decision to go away from the remote teachers was due to the consistency of the curriculum and the teaching for those students. And as we saw throughout the last several months when we were in hybrid, I guess not, you know, 6 weeks or so when we were during that hybrid, we had students that were frequently having to quarantine within that classroom. So having a full-time remote teacher, while that would help with the full-time remote students, but those students that had to flip in between quarantine and back and forth, we had quite a number of those students. I think at one point we had 400 some students that needed to do that. This allowed for the consistency within those students and also for teachers who had to go into quarantine to teach remotely from home while we had a sub in the building. So our intent was to have something that was most consistent with the student's experience with the teacher, the relationship built with those teachers. As we talked earlier with our staff, there were many people who expressed how beneficial it is for a relationship to be developed with the teacher. And we could see how many students were going to have to switch from their current classroom teacher to the remote teacher in the event that they had to quarantine for potentially the 14 days. So those are some of the things that we definitely considered. And when we talked about it, really the consistency is what we wanted to have. The other piece that went along with that was also the change, how quickly we can make that change. And I'll use Kyle Hassler's statement that he made when we had these discussions was we had to be able to make that change within a 20-minute phone call. And having the students have to go to remote and switch from in-person to remote is a little bit of a challenge when we're talking about the logistics of that and doing it very quickly, especially in a full school setting. But again, I'm going to let my building principals who are dealing more directly to add their opinions and what they're seeing, hearing, and seeing in the classrooms as well.
And I just actually want to ask one quick question. When there's the classroom teacher and the remote teacher, I guess I'm just still a little confused on why they wouldn't work together on like the assignment. So like if it did have to be done within 24 hours or whatever, they were working together so that this one knew how to do it in the classroom side aspect of it, and then this one knew how to do it on the remote aspect. And at the same time, the students had a relationship with both teachers. You would have thought that would have taken the students would have had then a relationship with both teachers. It would have released some stress for both teachers having to do so much work. Because I mean, these teachers have gone through a lot of preparing both classroom and remote instruction. So I kind of would think that would have been a positive for them as well as a positive for our students, because I have to say I'm a little disappointed in the fact that our students didn't know how to share screens until November. They've lost a lot of interaction time, not knowing how our teachers are doing all they can, and gosh, God bless them all. Like I mean, they all have a special place in my heart because it's hard. I mean, there's not enough money or vacation time or anything. I mean, to recoup everything that they've gone through this last year. But to be able to get a student to share their screen with them, and then they can actually see what the student is having an issue with, is a godsend, because then they can actually see with and work with the student to problem solve it. But you can't do that if the student doesn't know how to share screens. So I can see where a lot of frustration comes in when a student is frustrated, they can't explain it to the teacher, and the teacher's probably getting frustrated because he or she is trying to explain it to the student, and they're just not understanding because they need visuals. So I'm just, I guess I'm just really disappointed that we got away from the remote and classroom teacher where they really could have benefited from each other by taking a lot of stress away, and at the same time had that relationship with the student.
So before, again, I turn it over to any of the principals that are interested in adding information there, by removing the idea of a full-time remote teacher, it was able to keep our in-person classroom sizes lower than it would have been had we had of the full-time. The idea of working together, while I understand the theory behind that, that remote teacher will be working with 4 to 5 different teachers, trying to maintain that connection with and pacing with 4 or 5 different teachers. So I don't believe that the guaranteed and viable curriculum would be upheld during that. So again, I still stand behind this decision that this was the best interest while it's unpopular. And I know that it is difficult, but to keep consistency as best we can during this time with the curriculum and also the instructional methods. At this point, this is still, in my opinion, this is our best route to try to maintain that until we're able to come back with, again, back to a normal traditional school day. So I'll let my principals jump in and add additional information or answer questions.
I think at this point, that being that we're in the 3rd quarter of school, and if we do go back before the start of the 4th quarter, that these kids would already have been in the 3rd quarter with this teacher. They've had their Google Classroom set up. They are on Power School in Schoology with their classroom teacher. So we would have to shift all of that, which would be a difficult thing to do. Also for our littles, they've made wonderful relationships at this point in the school year with their teachers, which is so important to us. So to uproot them from their classrooms and potentially move them to another teacher, and then still have classrooms where in the event that we have to quarantine, then that would either be additional students we would have to move to that remote teacher, or that teacher would still have to teach simultaneously both those remote and in-person kids. So I think at least for the littles, switching a teacher when they are so comfortable and they are so used to that person at this point in the year would be really difficult for them.
Just to piggyback off that as well, I know that we had a lot of parents when we were kind of switching in and out between hybrid and remote that were concerned that their child was going to get another teacher at that point. So I know there was a lot of relief feedback we received that no, their teacher would stay the same.
So my question is, when the children come back for in-person, and you're going to have the majority, most likely you'll have at least half, if not more, of the students back into the classroom. Is the teacher going to have to continue to teach from her desk? Or are there going to be support people in there, especially at the primary level? I'm kindergarten, 1st, 2nd grade, so that the teacher can get up and help students if they need to and not have to sit at their desk to help them, that somebody else can be in the room to help monitor the online students when the kids are in the classroom. I think it's hard for the teacher to do both, especially when you're looking at a group of children in your classroom and maybe somebody's having a hard time with something in particular and you can't get up and go over and help them.
Yeah, I would absolutely, agree with that, but it is quite hard to get staffing in our buildings right now. I know we have 8 positions open. We've been, we're trying to get people in. So to get that staffing filled, that would be great. But if we can have people to do that, absolutely, I think we can look to schedule that for sure.
And the permanent subs that we're hiring, can they, I understand that they might have to step in if there's a quarantine or whatever, but can they be available? Can our aides be available to come in and step in and do some of these things?
Absolutely.
Again, especially
it's just hard to find them. That's all. But yeah.
I know that we've had a lot of our jobs have been posted for a while, and I know Lori's even gone and reposted them and even tried to, call us with a heads up, hey, try this one, call this person. It's just that unfortunately at this point, it's been very difficult to find the people to fill the positions that have already been approved. That's just been our challenge. But we agree, as much as possible, we have people helping, pulling kids in the hallway with plexiglass, trying to give as much support, especially at that, the littles. And that is our goal, but it has been really difficult with staffing for sure.
And I thank both of you for that input. Two classes that I was able to witness prior to Christmas break, there was a student in the classroom in need of help, yet I kept hearing the interruption of, Johnny, you need to put your screen back on, or Johnny, you need to put your blanket down, or it's so distracting to these littles who have such a short attention span, yet you're trying to manage both in-person and remote teaching. I was very frustrated as a watcher, as somebody just watching the process. I can't even imagine what these parents are feeling. So, I understand, and thank you, Mrs. Mano and Mrs. Ruggieri. It's very good to hear the opposing views, because we do see what's happening from a parental side. And I know you're frustrated at times and you're doing the best you can for your staff. But I want to bring those concerns from the community to you, because being that I saw it myself, it is so realistic. And I have friends who are struggling trying to get these littles up to speed, and some of them are probably going to have to repeat that grade. And it's a shame. So I am hoping that next year, in spite of this, perhaps we can plan appropriately, and maybe, even though district-wide we look for consistency, we need to maybe make some exclusions for our littles who are not at the same level of being able to sit and comprehend when they're distracted by some of those external issues.
Any other admins want to chime in on the remote instruction aspect of that? Or board members, do you have any other questions, for our building administration?
I just have a quick question. I think this would be more you, Dr. Mon, but for students that have made, will this survey that goes out be a chance to change their choice as our plan changes? I know it was kind of like a third quarter choice. Parents went in and made a selection. And if this is going to be before a quarter change, will that they be tied to that, or will they be able to make a new decision based on new information?
Yeah, we are gotta make sure, sorry, I wasn't sure if I was muted. We are intending for this to be a completely new option of selection. Every time we make such an adjustment like this, there are just new parameters that we think it's right for families to be able to make an informed decision about. So no, the question that we don't quite know is, like, we're looking to implement this prior to the fourth quarter. So I don't imagine us looking to make yet another selection for the fourth quarter. But again, if we had families that, sent their children back to this, and then based on the numbers of kids in the classrooms, they decide to go remote, I don't think we would ever stop someone from, making a change and returning to remote instruction as their learning choice. But no, this would be a new selection for families.
Thanks
So,
for
oh, sorry.
That's okay.
So I have one question. Probably have a couple. One, it would be, so our A schedule children seem to keep missing a lot of days because it falls on a holiday. So they miss that day. I would just like to suggest, why could we not do we have a holiday on a Monday. So why are those students not going to school then on Tuesday, Wednesday? And then the B students are going Thursday, Friday, because that one instruction day, the students are now missing a whole day of, like, they're missing that Monday because it's a holiday. I don't know if anyone else kind of feels the same way I do, but That's a whole day.
Yeah, I did have one other board member ask me about that split too. The true answer is that right now we don't have air purifiers to actually move the air in and out, and the Wednesday that allows the air to completely recycle between the groups of students is why the Wednesdays have still been the full-time remote day. So that there's the answer to that. We also have President's Day coming up, which is yet another Monday, and then if we continued this all the way until March 1st, we would have an Institute Day on Friday the 26th, I think. So there would be another B day off there as well. So at least in the month of February, those would balance out. But that's also one of the reasons that I am just really hoping that the roads are good tomorrow, because I don't want our A students to have to miss another day of in-person instruction tomorrow.
Okay, so if I'm understanding that correctly, then we already have these air purifying things?
No, I'm sorry. I said we don't have those right now, which is why the Wednesday having the full day to cycle the air through our current unit vents and clear through the air has been an important safety mitigation for us.
Right, but all I'm saying is why can't we just do the normal clean and have these kids go to school Monday or Tuesday, Wednesday, and then B goes Thursday, Friday? I'm just.
It's Ms. Fisher, if I may, with our elementary and especially at our campus, we're looking at a very large number of students within a building, even if we're looking at a third of those students coming in. So that Wednesday is a day in between cohort A and a day off before cohort B arrives. So the Wednesday allows for that turnover of complete air before a new set of students were to arrive. So we already know that our cohort A students are together. They are sharing that same air. That was our preventative measure, which again, that's why the air purifiers have become very important as we talk about removing that Wednesday in between. But with your suggestion of doing, instead of just using Wednesday to balance out, we would then lose that separation between the two cohort groups. And like MPC, we do have those two AM that comes in the morning and PM, and they're different groups of students. And we do have those I think it's approximately 2 hours in between those students in which the building is clean and the classrooms are cleaned, but it's also a much smaller number of students within that building. But again, that's where that Wednesday was designed for. But again, as Rich has mentioned, we now are looking at being able to go away from that with the procurement of those air purifiers.
And I would just a quick follow-up. Again, remember, Mr. Searle seemed to indicate that he believed that he could get a significant number of those in within 2 weeks, which would give us enough time to make an alteration for the week of President's Day, if the units do come in and can be deployed, and we feel that they will, give us the assurance we need that they will be able to clean the air in that time. So it's possible by the next time that we have one of those days off to start the week, we will have implemented some measures that make that Wednesday a moot point at this time.
Right. Well, no, I was just curious because that's what the high school does too. The high school does, if there's no school on Monday, they do Tuesday, Wednesday, and then does Thursday, Friday. So just kind of curious as to why we couldn't.
What is the air exchange? I know that I had sent an email to you, Dr. Mann, and Mr. Searle, you had answered. Because as I was doing some research, the recommendation for schools is that outside air return in a classroom should be every 6 to 7 times an hour. Do we know, does our univents or whatever we use for our heating and cooling, do they not do an air exchange?
Ms. Allen, I can promise Rich Searle to respond to that one.
Well, it's going to be kind of complicated, so I'll try to shrink this the best I can. But basically, I don't know about the 6 to 7. We try to show about 2.3 to 3.5 turns per hour. And our equipment in some cases, especially junior high, especially some of the older univents that we have, our calculations are based on just, I mean, all we can do is make calculations. We can't guarantee it because we've never done a study to see exactly, but our calculations are based on original equipment, and we do not get the appropriate turns. And we do not get that because our equipment is extremely old. There is some schools that are better than others. And the quantity of folks that you have in that building impact the quality of the turn. So if you are getting 2.3 turns and you don't give it enough time to clean the air, it's really not a good quality turn. So there's just a lot of things that go into into the modeling of that. In terms of where we stand as a district, we do not have the same equipment as many other school districts. We do not have rooftop units in the quantity that most school districts do. Those rooftop units allow you to change the air pressure, which allows you to change the velocity. It allows you to control so many things that we cannot do with univents. And then our univents have not been kept up over the years. The quality of them is, they're at the end of their useful life in many different aspects. We are trying to repair those as fast as we can and try to bring them up to speed as quick as we can. We do not have a comparable set of buildings to even some very close schools. For example, Yorkville. We could not compare, even though school-wise we're not that far off in quantity, but we can't do what those folks can do. And that's the overriding factor to try to get these units in here, is we know our air turns are not where they need to be. In regard to the MPC, just to give you guys just a little bit of information on that without getting too far in the weeds, that's a very old school. It was built on the premise of bringing in outside air. And with that in mind, we've been able to do some things successfully there that we don't have that choice at other schools. They were made not to have air conditioning in that school. And because of that, it actually works in our favor. The age of the school works in our favor there. And we've rode that very well. It's been very successful. We kind of knew that up front that we had a pretty good hand at that school, and it's worked out well. Other schools, not so much. And, in terms of this air turn, it's a complicated thing, and it usually isn't something we got to focus on. In a normal day-to-day, we just get as many turns as we can and we call it good. But with COVID-19, that's not a choice. I mean, we have to have, as good of an air turn as we can, and the quality does matter. That Wednesday, there is, few people in that building. They're not emitting any type of COVID-19. It's allowing us to clean the air, to scrub the air without having these units. So we're kind of doing what these units would do for us manually. When we give up that day, I think trouble is going to, pursue very quickly. That's why I'm hoping to get these units as fast as possible.
Couple of things. I know somebody noted, and I apologize, I don't remember who, much like they do at the high school. High school doesn't have school on Wednesdays. They just check in, that's it. But one thing I did want to make a comment on is our teachers are there every day. Our principals are there every day. So as we talk about why our students aren't there on a Wednesday, keep in mind, our staff has been there every day, regardless of the switch or routine of our students, be it the A students or the B students. So I'm just glad that these air units are going to be installed and helpful to everyone. And lastly, I hate to beat the dead horse, but we've given a date. Is everybody in agreement of that date? No later than March 1st, with the board trying to get students back in sooner than March 1st?
Tuesday?
I think that works for me. It's kind of like a bargain. You set a date, and if come in earlier. It's like when we build buildings and we come in under budget. It's the same type of thing. Everybody likes it when you get a better price.
But we're talking 5 days a week, correct?
Yes, we are.
Half.
And what I'd also say is, first of all, again, this is, as so many people have said, this is no later than, because things are fluid. And if things go well and we manage to solve transportation a different way, and the schools have made their adjustments by February 15th, we want these kids in school. So once we have assurance that, again, we can do it as safely as possible, knowing that we will be going away from the 6 feet social distancing. That we are not going to ask you to keep kids out of school when we think we've taken all the necessary steps and solved the last obstacles here. Another thing that I want to make sure that we're clear with our community about is this is the first step in getting more in-person time. We do not see this as the end. Everyone has the goal of getting these kids in for full days, before the end of this school year. So, once we get kids in the school, we will not be stopping our preparations to try to increase what we can do and slowly bridge that gap of lunch or more time during the day. So this is not an end game. We're not asking you to make this call for the remainder of the school year. We're asking you to, give your blessing for us to implement this as soon as we can, but no later than March 1st, this first step of bringing the kids in 5 days a week for those that choose in-person instruction.
And in our information out to parents when they make their selection too, maybe there should be, I don't know if you want to call it an emphasis, that if they are able to transport their own children or carpool, whatever the case may be, that would be greatly appreciated, just to alleviate some of the transportation concerns that we do have.
Yeah, I actually included that in my last community blast, just, welcoming people back. And I did get a response from one parent that was afraid that we were taking away busing. So I did have to alleviate that concern, but no, that will definitely be in our blast out to parents.
I still say we need to move it up to at least February 15th. Like if we need to get this, we need to get them in faster.
How do we propose that, Dr. Mann? What if we said that our littles come 5 days a week, beginning on February 15th, and then we work on our larger building projects if we needed to, as a latest date of March 1st?
Yeah, I would say, I think it's clear that people want them in earlier right now. Again, as I'm saying, like, I don't know that I will physically have enough drivers to implement that on February 15th. So I am looking into the other means by which, we can open even if we don't have enough drivers. So I do not have that answer for you tonight. So I would be very hesitant I would not want to ask you to give me a date of February 15th, because there are still just some legitimate obstacles that I don't legally know if we can overcome yet until we get a little further on that transportation staffing aspect.
It's just, and I bring it up a lot of times, you won't have to hear me say this very much longer, but as a working mom and a mom who would have struggled at the time that my children were little to pay for daycare, I just want to get this back to normal. I want to see our kids in the classroom. I want to see them happy, healthy. We hear about all of these concerns that we're having due to the situation that we're in. So I know we're pressing. When would you be able to get back to the board members as to what those legal ramifications are, and if we would be able to shoot for that 2/15 date?
Well, we have an executive session tonight where we're going to be discussing bargaining and some legal matters. So there will be a little bit of discussion there. And then clearly, as I get answers, I will be communicating them with the board. And if we need to then schedule a follow-up meeting, we will see if we can get everybody either in the room or on a Zoom. But we're not stopping after this meeting. It's all systems go.
Mrs. Thompson, I will say, it's Natalie Baxter, everybody. I will say that my fellow elementary principals and I have been meeting and really discussing, and a few of the obstacles besides, we are you know, at Minooka Elementary, I can say, and a couple of the other schools, we are short. The staffing is something that we are working very diligently to try to address. We're also short a teacher at MES and maybe a couple of the other schools, but some of our biggest obstacle probably at every school is that once we put the desks back into the classroom, we'll have to go back to tables for our littles in kindergarten, which is doable, but we're going to have to look into and work with Dr. Staub to get some more plexiglass so that we could at least socially distance the children a little bit, because we could potentially have 24 children in a classroom, in a kindergarten classroom. So that's something that we're going to be talking about right away tomorrow. But I did want you to know that the staffing is really an issue. And then our kindergarten is something that we are really focusing on to maintain that safety as much as possible.
And Mrs. Baxter, I appreciate that, but this should have been something that we were working on months ago, knowing that our end result was to get these kids back in the classroom, not to your demise or meaning anything derogatory towards you, but we shouldn't be at the last minute wondering how we're going to get this plexiglass with tables when we knew from the beginning this was going to be inevitably what we were going to do.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I have a question. If say we left it the way, and this might be more for the administrators, if we were to keep, because of what we're in third quarter right now, correct?
Yes, we are.
Okay, so if we were to keep it the way it is right now, and not that I'm trying to keep anyone out, because I'm really not the big mean witch. If we were to keep the counts the way they are right now and open this up to 2:15, because when do we go into fourth quarter?
March 8th is the first day of fourth quarter.
Okay, so if we were to keep it the way it is right now as a trial, just to get it going, just to get the kids flowing, okay, because you're anticipating March 8th anyway, or to have the air systems in and everything's going on. So why can't we leave it with the students that we have now, because we've already opened up the changing of or the parents of picking if you wanted to be hybrid or if you wanted to be remote. So there's only a couple more weeks left. Why can't we leave it the way it is now, get it as a trial to make sure everything's up and running smoothly, get those students in the buildings, make sure we have enough buses going, and get this process started so that by March 8th, we are up and ready then for fourth quarter, full blown, moving on out, ready to go. But why can't we start with the students that we have now that are in person and get going by February 15th? Like, because we know what the numbers are. We know what we can work off of. We can.
And we,
you know what I mean?
that was the initial, that was one of the initial obstacles that I mentioned, is that like, we don't have enough drivers now for the children that have chosen in-person learning if we were to bring them all back.
Even oh, I totally missed that.
Yeah.
Okay.
With transportation estimates that we would be short between, I think they said 12 to 15 drivers at this point.
Don't we have automatic buses yet? Where's this technology? Don't we have remote robots that just drive these buses around that, you know, do the automatic routes?
No, and honestly, anybody that's put like their youngest child on a bus knows that you want a friendly face right there to greet your littles when they come on. So.
Oh, I know. I'm talking about junior high. I mean, we might as well let the junior high kids drive. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm teasing about that. But oh God. All right, sorry. Just in a thought.
Okay, I think we're ready to move on. We've had a pretty good discussion here, and I think it's been very helpful to go through all the ifs and what we can do, what we can't do. I'm ready to move on to the next item, which is the approve the purchase of the air purifier equipment. And need a motion.
Before we move on, can I just say one thing?
Yeah.
If we're looking if there's a chance that we're looking at February the 15th, why don't we decide to meet as a board the week before that, February the 8th, 2 weeks from tonight, so that we can let parents know it's not going to be March the 1st. We're moving it up 2 weeks.
I think a week's notice is a little bit shy, but I do like your approach.
Let's set the meeting date so we do this. To give them 2 weeks, to give the parents 2 weeks notice, which would be great, but we would have to make that decision.
That's next Monday.
Yeah, and we won't have the air cleaners in by that time.
We don't expect, but we might have an ETA on them.
Right.
Well, hopefully we'll find that out by Friday as per the project plan question.
Mm-hmm.
Will he put that call in tomorrow then if we approve this?
He might put it in tonight.
Cool.
So have we moved to that? Are we to action items?
If we were ready to do that.
Or do we want to
just to address
set our meeting date?
Yeah, I mean, if we can just address Alice real quick, setting a special meeting date just requires 48 hours notice. So if you're okay with it, why don't you let us get a few more details later this week, find out what lead times are, and some possible other legal matters that I have to resolve. And then, I can communicate out to the board. And if you feel like you want to, have a meeting to publicly discuss all of that in the middle of next week, or you want to wait until February 8th, you can decide that with a shorter time frame.
Dr. Mon, have you heard anything more from the health department as far as vaccinations for our teachers?
Yeah, actually, yes. They believe. I'm sorry for the stutter there. Yes, the vaccination process for all of Phase 1B kicked off this week. I know that I think Grundy even had a clinic last Saturday. We have been asked to provide an initial round of our staff members for a first dose to happen, I believe, later this week, unless something changes. So we will have approximately, I'm doing quick math in my head, I think about 16 to 17% of our staff that asked to be vaccinated, the first dose within a week or so. And then we simply await on when additional doses are available in Grundy County. But we do an informational meeting, once a week with that, as well as informational meetings with local superintendents on different days. So yes, the vaccination process is up and running. It is still possible that the second doses won't be completed for 2 or 3 months. It all depends on available supply that the county gets in.
Right. Okay, great. Thank you.
Before we move on, can you just maybe give us a quick update on extracurriculars and sports?
Oh, I was going to address that administrative resports, if that's okay. Administrative resports, I think I just said. Sorry for the pun. But yes, one of the things I was going to ask was to have our junior high admins kind of give an update on what is going on with state sports. So if you're okay, if we can at least move through the action item for Rich's approval, and then we can kick into that.
Yeah, sounds good.
I would like to amend the action item to include 10 units per school and the procurement of the dedicated units for MJHS and MIS.
Second.
I'll second.
Any other discussion on that motion? Lori, you still here?
I'm here. Mrs. Thompson?
Aye.
Mrs. Allen?
Aye.
Mrs. Conquest?
Aye.
Mrs. Fisher?
Aye.
Mr. Karczewski?
Aye.
Mr. Skorzynski?
Aye.
Mr. Sartorius?
Aye. Motion carried. Thank you very much.
And honestly, to the board, thank you. That is a huge purchase. And thank you to Rich Searle for doing his due diligence and finding something that can benefit us both now and in the long term. Once we can put COVID behind us, there will always be virus in the air. So that we can use that for many, many years to come. Okay, so
real quick, I got one more question on that.
Oh,
we need to amend the motion to include that our long-term plan is to implement them in each of the schools as a dedicated, or do we wait on that?
You would wait on that. You're approving this specific procurement right now. The next phase would come in a different time.
I just don't want us to forget about it.
Yep.
Thank you.
So as we've done for a while now, I'm going to ask our district office team to just kind of give you some brief updates on what's going on in their areas. But I did want to start by inviting Mr. Gensler and any of the other junior high administration to discuss what's going on with sports and extracurriculars, how it looks in our current environment here in Minooka, and just get some feedback from the board on that. So MJHS, are you still with us and ready to go?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm right here, Dr. Mon. So as I think the last time I presented or we talked, we were discussing moving forward in November with everything being virtual so that we can give the kids the opportunity. They'll meet outside of school, they'll meet in Zooms, they'll still be able to do any number of activities that they do, meet with the sponsor, meet with the coach. So as we got further into December, the IESA was slowing down with and IHSA was slowing down with any dates for meeting, and we ended up having to cancel the ability to do any sports for contact days for the upcoming January season. And probably around the second week of December was when the IESA said, hey, we're not even going to tell you dates anymore. We have the dates, we're going to leave those, and we're going to go from that. Their idea of keep moving it forward, I think we were all to the point in December where we realized we're going to run out of time. There is an end to the school year, and at some point we're going to run out of time. So speaking with Dr. Mon, Kyle Hassler, the admin team, we decided to move forward with not just extracurriculars as remote, but also start putting together virtual athletics. So we started that planning, discussions, emailing out the coaches in December. And we were getting started around January 4th. That first week, we were getting everything worked out. We were pretty much rebuilding an entire system for athletics that we had never done. So there wasn't a template to follow or how we were going to do it. So we've got those up. We've got them on the website. Coaches are making videos. People are able to watch them, similar to how we did our introduction to elementary activities. Kyle Hassler's information with all that, and Coach Mentz's activities with all that were able to guide us for what we did. So we got that started, and we're about three and a half weeks into that. And as we continue to build that up, we're getting to the point where I met with the IVC, and the discussion was who's going to play, who's going to not. And due to a lot of the things we've talked about this evening with kids in the building, getting kids in the building, our goal and our plan right now is to promote continuing this. Our plan's always been to go virtual athletics through to spring break. And then once spring break comes, our goal was to hopefully have track and girls soccer be able to be in person because we can be outside. And hopefully we'll know more of the questions that we've talked about this evening about the number of kids in school and things like that. So right now, our recommendation is to continue with virtual athletics, virtual extracurriculars, and continue that until spring break when we can reevaluate how that'll look and how it would affect the school day. And probably our biggest concern is with kids in the building. The more kids we get in the building, I would hate for a basketball practice, a volleyball practice to impede the actual students in the building. I think a lot of our conversation tonight has been getting as many kids in the building as long as possible for as much contact time with their teachers as possible. And my worry is that all the work we put in for that will be taken out by a sporting event, and that's my concern.
If I could jump in, Mr. Gensler, one of the things that we talked about when we were talking about it as an administrative team was also we had kind of put a priority on trying to make sure that all the kids that want to participate in programs this year have the opportunity to. Being that everybody's kind of going through these hardships, this was an avenue for us to have offerings that didn't involve tryouts and cuts, taking the opportunity to participate and paring it down to a couple dozen kids. This, given the state of kind of what we're dealing with this year, seemed like a fair and equitable opportunity for everybody when we were putting forth this opportunity. It's already been pretty well received by the students who are taking advantage of it.
One question, Grundy County moved to phase 4 today, which the state then said, you know, sports are open in phase 4. So while I understand where you're coming from, I do anticipate that there will be families that are, you know, wanting extracurriculars back for their kids. Certainly in-person learning is my utmost priority, I think, for everybody here. That's why we do what we do. But, you know, I do hate to see these kids miss out, especially this spring season, who all missed out all of last spring or most of last spring with the March shutdown. So, you know, as the numbers change, does that change your take on it? I know as a parent of kids that do extracurriculars, that's certainly for the social emotional learning, something that's really beneficial to them.
Yeah, I agree that the social emotional learning is huge, and definitely I do understand. I wasn't here last year, but I am familiar with kids in the spring. They lost their season. So yeah, that is our goal, is to have track as well as girls soccer, because there is more opportunity because they can be outside. So being outside will help out the ability to have that. And that's been our goal from November, is, you know, hoping we can have stuff, but realistically being the, you know, administrator, the adult, and saying, I don't think we're going to be able to do anything until spring. So yeah, that's still our realistic goal, to get teams out there, get coaches out there, get the kids together. Hopefully we have some data points from how it went when we bring more kids into the school 4 more days, and see how that goes. And then if that rolls into, hey, we can have some sports and do some things with sports, and those kids won't miss 2 seasons, then yeah, we're definitely all for that.
What about some of the more individually competing items like Scholastic Bowl, Math Club? Help me out. I think there's more.
We've got the Scholastic Bowl, the Math Club, Drama Club, Chess Club, and Science Club. Actually, I talked to Ms. Pico last week, and she's working with Exxon to find out if they're going to do anything. But all the aforementioned ones, Scholastic Bowl, they're doing everything online currently. So they're part of working with the IVC. So everybody's planning on doing it. So they're going to have competitions. Math Club's also working on building tests to do things also virtually. Drama Club, I just got the email tonight about their activities that they're going to have starting next week. Chess Club is online. We have a new sponsor so he can do it online. And then, like I said, the Science Club, we're going to find out if Exxon's able to help us out with that, because they're a pretty big driver of the Science Club. So I'll find out in a couple of weeks from Mrs. Pico.
Yep. Mr. Getzler, this may not be for you. It might be for Mr. Mon. We're talking about sports and extracurricular, but how about band? Will the kids get back, you know, perhaps after Easter, to a more normal band instead of?
I will again, and I will pass that baton off. I know Dr. Ruland and the admins at the junior high and MIS have been engaging in conversations with our band teachers about what could come next and all of that. So, anyone?
Yeah, I'll jump in there, and then I'll, again, if my building principals want to add to it. Yeah, so we do want to eventually get back to band as normal. And I know our band directors have been working to get that as quickly as possible as well. One of the things that we want to do is we want to take one variable at a time. So if we're increasing our students in class to essentially double what they are right now, I would like to see that be successful before we introduce an additional variable, which is the introduction of airplaying instruments within the building. Now, I also know that we are looking at procuring the outside tents, so when the weather warms up, we'll be able to do that safer in the outside, which may speed it up as well. But yes, we are looking to get back to band as normal as possible. Again, but after one introduction of a variable first, which is, again, we're increasing our students in the classroom. I do want to see that is successful before we introduce another variable. So one controlled variable at a time. And Miss Massey and Miss Pico, if I stated something anything incorrectly, if you'd correct me on that. But I think I've gotten the gist of our conversations as of late.
Yes, sir. I think Mr. Skorzynski, our push is for that weather to turn so that we can get that tent back up outside of the band room. You know, we really enjoyed driving to school in the morning and seeing Mr. Neisler out there practicing early in the morning with the kids and seeing them be able to receive that direct instruction from their band director. I know it's not the same, you know, doing so virtually by any means, but we definitely are the movement of that air. You know, when they're blowing their trumpets and their horns and such, it's like Dr. Rowland said, you know, we're a little hesitant about that for sure. But it is something that we know is important to our community. It's important to our kids, and we want to get that back to normal as quickly as possible as well. I think the turning of the season, the air handlers that we're talking about, you know, there's some things we're putting into place that may be able to speed that process up. But at this point, you know, I as unfortunate as it was to have the conversation with Ms. Tatey and Mr. Neisler, I think the best move is for us to get back in person academically as much as possible, and then reintroduce those things as we see some successes.
And how will that be affected by the fact that we don't have a band room and it's now a classroom for regular curriculum?
So at this point in our building, we've been fortunate enough that Mr. Neisler's using it still as his classroom. You know, should we return with a larger classroom that we need to relocate, we may have to mix things up. But at this point, he's been fortunate enough to be able to maintain his home in there, if you will. I don't know if the same is true for Mrs. Peekel's building.
I'll jump in there, and Gina, you can certainly add to it. In our conversations, and I know Gina's talked to Ms. Tatey, but in the event that we're able to go back to band, we were already looking at a different space in order to increase the amount of space for the introduction of those students to be able to actually blow air through instruments. So even then, we're still looking at moving that room to accommodate for that. But Ms. Peekel, I'll let you correct or add into that.
No, Ms. Tatey is currently in what was once the teacher's lounge with her students. We just started reintegrating band as a class because we weren't having the students move originally. So now that cohort of band kids is actually moving classes to go to band. As time goes on, like Dr. Rowland said, potentially the gym or a larger space where the air does circulate more than the closed room that she's currently in are our plans.
Thanks, Ms. Peekel. And Mr. Gensler, I owe you an apology. The meeting that I had with everybody at the junior high, he was present too and very helpful. So my apologies for excluding you from that elite group. Thanks so much.
No need to apologize, but thank you.
Okay, Dr. Rowland, did you have anything else in the arena of administrative reports, sir?
I do have 3 items that are non-remote instruction COVID related that I just want to bring to the attention of the board. We had talked before about state accountability assessments and the status of those currently. Originally, the access testing, which is for emerging bilinguals students, was to begin in January. The state has pushed that back to March 15th, in addition to all of our other state assessments, IAR, DLM, et cetera, to that March 15th date as the earliest. The state is currently looking at submitting a waiver for those as they did last year, but we have no status on that at this moment. But everything has been pushed to that March window. Secondly, the Illinois State Board has also implemented new teaching standards to better serve diverse populations of students. Those culturally responsive teaching and learning standards are going to be rolled out with obviously the pre-service universities, but we'll be incorporating those into our professional development and in our professional practice as well. And then the last one is just to, again, make the board aware, Governor Pritzker signed a public act back in August that has now become commonly known as the LGBTQ Inclusive Curriculum Bill. And the core purpose of that bill is to ensure that lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer and questioning contributions are included in curriculum and history classes. We have begun having some very, very high level conversations about the introduction of that. We have not made major steps, but again, as we start to transition from COVID remote planning and moving into back to what curriculum looks like, these are topics that we'll be thoughtfully engaging with our teachers into incorporating in those curricular areas as appropriate, and of course the teaching practices as teachers are professionals. So with that, those are really the big items, other than again our movement towards 5-day-a-week students.
Let us go with Dr. Tiffany Staub.
Thank you, Dr. Mann. Yes, a lot of our focus has been on bringing more students in for more time. So I know a lot of our buildings have more of our special needs students as well as some of our students that are not necessarily special need, but are having needs due to the pandemic, bringing them in for more days. We're still focusing on that 6 foot of social distancing right now. As our metrics are improving, our buildings are still being very vigilant about making sure that we encourage the children of the 3 W's: wear your mask, wash your hands, and watch your distance. We're also focusing on supporting our kiddos with their current needs. Our teams have been doing great, reaching out to parents. Every time that I talk to some of our teams at our buildings, they bring new ideas to light that I'm sharing kind of throughout the district. I was just speaking with some of our social workers today, and as we're talking about kiddos coming back in, we need to kind of think of some new concepts that are going to affect social emotional. There's kind of like that pandemic or the COVID anxiety that's definitely present. So that's stuff that our social workers are going to be working on and making sure that our children are ready to come back in. Perhaps it's somebody that has been fully remote or somebody that is worried about the social distancing. And we want to make sure that those children feel supported and that they're ready to learn. So those were some different things that we were discussing today. We're also excited. Grundy County Special Education Cooperative is going to be starting some in-person screenings for early childhood and pre-kindergarten support. We've been doing those remotely since March, but we are able to start doing some in person, and we're excited to have our first one in Minooka in March. Of course, we'll still be practicing social distancing. Only one parent will be allowed to escort the child into the screening, but we are excited to have some of those in-person screenings occurring again. I know some of the staff members or some of the administrators have already brought up that we're definitely short some special education staff this year. We're still down 1 teacher at MPC, and we need many aides as well as some nursing staff, and those health aides that we spoke about in December, we're still searching for those. So that's something that we really want to implore the community, that we need paraprofessionals, we need some special education teachers, and even those health aides. We need people in our buildings to help support us and help support the teachers and the students as well. In terms of non-COVID related, MPC is going through the early childhood environmental education codes planning. Each year, that's something that the state reviews where you're at with how much of your children are spending time in the general education population versus the special education population, and how much of their time is spent here versus there. So that is what we're working on right now with MPC. We thought maybe the state would give us a little bit of break with that, but it didn't happen. So Terry Miller and her staff there are working on answering the various questions, and we work with the numbers that the state gives us to see where are we at and where can we go to continue to facilitate an inclusive environment throughout all of our grade levels. And then some other things that we're watching in student services. There's a new omnibus bill that came out at the beginning of the year, and we're keeping a close eye on that because there's going to be a lot of updates to social emotional learning through that omnibus bill, and we want to make sure that we're taking part and taking advantage of all of the different supports that the state is going to offer in those areas.
Hi, Mrs. Staub.
Hi.
Question for you. Has House Bill 2 regarding the LGBTQ community affected schools at all, where it advocates for opponents of that bill to fight back for the identity of the gender using bathrooms, the so-called bathroom bill? Does that affect us in any way?
We haven't seen an impact of that yet. A few years ago, it was very heavily like a lot of high schools were, and it was a lot more, not necessarily the bathrooms, it was more like locker rooms.
Right.
And I want to say that was a couple years ago. So we started doing some staff training with gender fluidity and transgender, being very aware of how we approach our students. And I will say that I think our staff does an amazing job with that, especially our administrative staff and our social workers, our counselors. Once we're aware of that, and we've had some different incidents, then we've been able to work with those families and those children to make sure that they feel supported in their environments.
On March 16th, March of 2016, that House Bill 2 was passed. And I know that a part of that had expired last month. So I just wanted to know if that aligned with the gender identity that the student has and if we will see any impact of that.
I don't believe that we're going to see any impact. In our current environment, I don't see any impact. However, that's something that our staff is constantly, like I said, our administrators, our counselors, and our social workers are constantly working with individuals to make sure that they're supported in their environments.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Dr. Staub?
Thank you.
Mrs. Robinson, do you have anything to share?
The only thing I was really going to share, I wanted to talk a little bit about the federal funding through the CARES Act, but we obviously already started talking about that earlier tonight. So hopefully we will see that estimate finalized. Like we talked about, it's somewhere in the range of $725,000. So I will continue to work with Rich once he has some new numbers for me, and then we will work as a team to write the rest of the grant for the remainder of that grant. And then I also just wanted to mention lunches. We are back to our hybrid schedule, which is Monday and Thursday pickups. All that information is on our website under food services. For the kids who are in person, they are still asked first period on Mondays and Thursdays if they'd like to take home lunch. And then we will just continue to adjust that schedule as our schedule adjusts, but we will always send out information directly to families and always post that on our website. And then lastly, I just wanted to mention for any staff that are listening, the business office is still handling any COVID-related staff cases, exposures. So if anyone has any questions, we are starting to look at vaccine scheduling. So if anyone has any questions regarding any of that, they can contact me.
Hi, Mrs. Robinson, question for you. While we're writing that grant up, what is our intention for the remainder of the $750,000?
I'll jump in there if I may.
Okay.
And Mary just breathed a sigh of relief, I think. No, we're debating some of that, but honestly, the biggest thing that is on our radar is and I was going to comment on this before we started to wrap things up. We are looking to greatly expand our summer school offerings as we get into this summer, and we're basically over the next few months, I believe you'll see some more information coming out from us about as we further get a grasp on whatever learning gap or COVID gap starts to exist. We want to offer families the ability to continue to supplement with the school year in the month of June or in the month of late July as we get in there, not just with the types of enrichment courses that seem to be popular, and not just with our own dive in and jumpstart programs, but really break that open even more and just provide truly extended school year type services was our initial idea that we were going to propose doing with some of that grant. Dr. Rowland, I don't know if you have anything to add there or if it's just an upcoming type information.
No, we will certainly give more updates as we get further into it. But yeah, we started to meet to discuss how we can expand that program. And essentially we have a rough outline of what June could look like. And we are over 3 weeks worth of additional days in which we can have our students attend for additional academics. And we're opening that up to as many students that are interested, as long as we have staff that are able to fill and teach throughout the summer. So definitely we look to have June pretty full all the way up to 4th of July with additional offerings for academics. And then again, we're starting to look at our August, which is traditionally our Jumpstart program, and seeing what that could look like as well. So yes, we will have more details, but the planning is already in place or has already started, and we'll be able to give you a pretty a better polished rough draft of that starting the next meeting, and then obviously offering that out to our parents here prior to spring break.
Would that grant allow us additional funds outside of our personnel budget to accommodate for those extra positions that we may need to fill going into fourth quarter or even next year, as far as the additional classroom help if we have someone in a hybrid learning position of a remote and classroom teacher?
Yes, we were initially when we you know, found out the amount, we were like, well, that we can use that to fund the permanent subs that we were doing, and then the additional health services. But yes, adding personnel to help you remain open and supplement your staffing is one of the biggest, you know, allowable expenses of these federal grants.
In addition, we have enough PPE for all of our staff and everything that we need to keep them safe and sound?
I would turn to Dr. Staub and or Mr. Searle on that one.
Yeah, we took additional rounds of PPE to all the buildings. The administrators know if there's any additional needs for PPE, gloves, gowns, masks, shields, desk protectors, anything of the sort. All they need to do is let my office know and we can get it to them I usually make my rounds at about 4:30 every night and drop things off to buildings.
And then we do also, I don't know this for sure, but I'm assuming we have additional masks and such for children who attend school and have forgotten, or they just don't have the ability to procure on their own.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. We have PPE within all of our buildings for both staff and students should they need them.
Awesome. Thanks for your help.
I have a question. I kind of heard something, and like I'm not completely educated on it because I have not had a chance to completely dig into it. So Dr. Staub, you may have more information on it than I have been able to dig up, but that's what I'm asking. Do we have any information on something about a nurse's grant? Are there any kind of grants since the COVID that they were giving grants to schools to get more health professionals to help us? Is that a possibility, or is this all combined into this filtration system?
I have not heard of any additional nurses grant. I know that there's the COVID CARES money the CARES grant that we have received, which can be utilized for that as well. And that's where we were planning on getting those additional health aides that would be able to help in the nurses' offices.
Okay, and that's what I'm kind of thinking, like they maybe lumped it all together. So that's the information I needed to know. Thank you.
Mr. Souza.
Can I ask Mary a quick question? Sorry. Mary, do you have, has our lunch program still been getting good response? Are we reaching families that are needing it, do you think? Or has that kind of tapered down?
Yeah, no, I think there was a little bit of a dip, but now the numbers are definitely back up and we are serving over 7,500 lunches a week. So we are definitely serving we're back to the numbers that we were at in the fall. So yes.
Wonderful. And I also wanted to say, I know that the undertaking of all this quarantine questioning, vaccines and all of that, a lot of that is falling on your office. And I just thank you for all the extra time and effort you're putting in to make sure our staff and students are safe and that information is all available to everybody that needs it. So thank you very much for that.
Thanks. Sure. Thank you.
I got to echo that too. Mary, you do an amazing job. It feels like every time we have a board meeting, we find more and more responsibilities that fall your way. We just can't thank you enough.
Thank you.
Now, Mr. Souza.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Thanks for letting me talk. A couple quick things coming our way. You'll be happy to note that in this meeting, I don't have an action item requesting additional procurement, but that is coming your way. So as we discuss right now, what's happening in the next 1 month, 2 months, the tech team is looking forward to the summer, and we've already put out multiple proposals for various upgrades that we will be looking to upgrade this summer. We'll be, as usual, leveraging as much as we can through the federal E-rate program, so that if the government approves it, we will be reimbursed up to 50% of the cost. So the items that we will be looking to go after this summer would be upgrading portions of our internet, our building-to-building communications, building cabling, and district firewalls. In the next, so proposals are and requirements have been posted, and I hope in the February and March board meetings to actually bring something to you guys for recommendations and approval. Again, this will be our standard kind of a timeline, if you will, where we'll take the lowest quality bid or response and then throw it through the federal quick checklist for approval, and then assuming that we should likely get reimbursed, bring it to you guys for formal procurement approval. In short, we'll be seeking again proposals for internet upgrading, building the building communications, aux-able data cabling, it's the wires inside the building, and then district firewalls. With that, the tech team continues to do the best we possibly can to support both remote and in-person teachers and students. And I'll take any questions you guys have.
Hi, Mr. Souza. Can you tell me, does the CARES Act provide for some of that you're looking for funding from us, being that these students, even though we're one-to-one now, are so much more utilizing their laptops than they would have before? I'm not quite sure what will fall into that, but anything that we can do to keep some tax dollars from being passed on to our families would be much appreciated.
Yeah, I think a couple things might fall in the categories there. Obviously, I'll talk with Mary Robinson, Dr. Mon. Obviously, there are some other kind of competing interests in out of the bucket. So, you know, perhaps, again, hopefully our big ticket items are going to be 50% reimbursed anyway, so it won't be a huge hit. We are also potentially looking at what are we going to do with 2nd to 4th grade, but we'll bring more ideas in upcoming months there on devices. Those would definitely fall in the CARES Act procurement, but good question.
We'll take that other 50%.
Anything else for Mr. Souza?
I have something for Mrs. Robinson. Real quick question. This CARES grant, is this guaranteed monies or do we have to apply for it? In other words, what is that $725,000 I think you said we had? It sounds like we're going to the well here.
Yeah.
A lot of items.
Yeah. That's the estimate of what's been allocated. So once we would be able to write the grant for the total amount that is allocated once that's finalized. And yes, we will write it so that it is things that are, that would be approved.
We're not competing against other districts to get the money.
No, not a competitive grant.
Good.
Right. Yeah, we're just competing within the district for the money.
It's similar to like our title grants, where they tell us how much we can they've allocated. So long as we give them a list of eligible expenses, we will receive the funds.
Right.
All right, I believe that is all for administrative reports tonight. Any board members have any topics that they would like us to collect more information on?
I have one, the administrative report from the junior high for graduation, the different options that were in there. Could you add
administration, are you around to answer any questions here?
Absolutely. I thought we dodged that bullet this time, Mr. Scorsese.
There's one option that would be wonderful to be put in there. And that would be graduation as normal.
Yes, sir.
If the metrics get better, who knows, there might be a 1% chance that we could be at that spot.
Yeah, and that's the tricky part about this, right? Like we're planning something a few months away, not knowing what the metrics are going to be then. So we have decided to just kind of function under, if it is what it is right now, what can we do safely for our families? And then of course, we'll adjust our course if things change along the way, whether they get, restrictions get even tighter or if they loosen up for us. But what we placed in the board report this month was kind of our best guess. I know we got a bit of a mulligan last year because we were planning on the fly with everything being thrown at us there in the last minute and not knowing what we could do safely and how to do it safely. So we've definitely talked as a group about how we know we're going to have to step up our game and do more for these kiddos. You know, the 7th grade kids in our building last year, they haven't had a normal year, a normal junior high year in their entire time with us. So we recognize that, and we want to try to make this special. We did like some of the things that we did last year. Honestly, we thought the video was really nice. We had the drone that did the flyover footage and stuff. The signs on the soccer field, while not perfect, definitely, you know, kind of was a little nod to the collective graduation class. We plan to entertain bringing back some of those things, as well as figuring out a way to actually say the names of the kids and have them cross the stage. It might look a little different than what it has in the past, again, based on the metrics that we're operating under now. But it is important to us, and we know it's important to our families and our community to have some sort of a recognition ceremony where the students and some of their family members, it might not be able to be as many as they would like, but we will have some of them in an environment that you know, we can set up like a graduation. We call their name, they walk across. We might not be able to shake hands, but we can you know, distribute the diplomas in a building and do it a little more traditionally than we were able to do last year.
I was really impressed with the brainstorming that went on. There's a lot of options there.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. We've got a really great team, and it's important to us that, you know, like I said, these kiddos haven't had a normal junior high year, so it's important to us to try to make it as special as possible for them.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Anything else from the board members? Well, before we wrap, I would just like to say again to our community that, you know, everyone on this side and everyone out there, we all share the same goal of getting these kids back in school for full traditional school days and you know, resuming school the way it once was. So tonight, the board gave us direction on this first step, but it is not the last. So look for more information very soon as we ask people to make yet another selection of a return to in-person learning, or if they wish to remain remote. And as we finalize a couple of these last barriers and obstacles, we will have information on what date we think we can implement this. And with that, I would ask Mr. Sartorius, we would need a motion to go into executive session to discuss collective bargaining and legal matters.
I have a motion for that.
I'll make the motion. We go into the executive session.
I'll second it.
All those, roll call.
Ms. Lori, are you still there?
There she is. She's muted. You're muted.
Yeah, I'm good.
There you go.
Mr. Skorzynski?
Aye.
Mr. Karczewski?
Aye.
Mrs. Allen?
Aye.
Mrs. Conquest?
Aye.
Mrs. Fisher?
Aye.
Mrs. Thompson?
Aye.
Mr. Sartorius?
Aye. You need to go to the new.
Yes, we remember board members, you have a separate link to the executive session. To the rest of our administrative team, thank you for your time tonight. Members of the public, thank you for logging in and following along with our board meeting. There will be no action after executive session, so we will be adjourning the meeting from there. Thank you all, and board members, I'll see you on the other side.
Thank you.